Welcome to the next episode of the Cathode Ray Podcast. I'm here with my friend Steve Nutter, and we are joined today by a new guest. We've talked to him for the first time. We're having fun. His name is the 8-Bit Esquire, and his claim to fame is literally that he writes a few funny tweets and has a reasonable retro setup. That is the level of guest that we will have on this show.
That's right.
Great setup, Lewis. You forgot the drum roll for him, though.
Oh, the drum roll.
What was it? The drum roll or the clapping? I can't.
You guys,
you
I
didn't
can't
even give him the clap.
I can't think of a
The
better
clap.
way.
There you go.
I can't think of a better way to grow a podcast than to bring on a guy. Wow.
There.
Right on time. Okay.
Let's grow a podcast by bringing on a guy that has less than 1,000 followers on Twitter and contributes absolutely nothing to this space. Doesn't program anything. Doesn't mod anything. Doesn't do anything.
Where's your mod chip, Roger? Why haven't you made a new SB Pico thingy this week, huh? Where's your...
You don't want me anywhere around a soldering iron. That'd be a problem. So.
Dear me. So, like, Roger's the name. I only learnt the name recently as well. So good sir. Roger is your first name.
That is my first name, yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah, you could probably, and I am really an attorney. I really do practice law in the state of Michigan. I live in the Detroit area.
Is Detroit dangerous? I'm a stupid European. I don't know
Yes.
anything.
Yeah, we produce cars and misery. That's it. That's all we do. No, Detroit's great, man. Like, it's funny because I'll see a lot of people that'll, post on Twitter like, hey, I'm heading out to this convention, or I'm going out to Detroit for some work thing, and the takeaway is always the same. Like, wow, that exceeded my expectations. And the downtown area is really cool. I mean, I moved here in 2006, and it was right before the bottom fell out in the recession here in the States, and it wasn't great. I got to be honest with you, it wasn't a great place to live. I did live downtown at the time, though. I had an apartment there while I went to law school, and but in the 15 or so years since, it's crazy. I mean, the downtown it's really a fun place. It's a great place to go. Come visit Steve sometimes. I think we have some sort of retro convention up here. I can't remember. I know we did for a few years.
They got to invite Steve. Well, we were talking about that before. We got to get Steve's manager on this.
That's right.
First class flights. First class all the way.
He's an influencer now. That's right.
The PVM influencer. Roger, where did you grow up though? Where do you come from?
Well, I've been in the Midwest most of my life. I was from Indiana before this, but then when I was a kid, I was down in Florida. So most of my kind of retro gaming memories are down in Florida, and so I've kind of just wherever my dad's job went, that's where I went. And
okay, was he moving around? What did he do?
He was in the transportation industry. So as he got promoted, he would move to different, wherever a new company would be, and I was just along for the ride. And
okay, so how was that? You had to move around a lot. So did you adapt to learn how to?
Is this therapy? This is therapy.
It is.
I mean,
I know, I'm just trying to get like. This is not even therapy. This is like speed therapy.
Yeah, I'm keen to talk to the lawyer. All right, let's.
I mean, you can send me a bill, Lewis, if you want. Do you take my insurance? Do you take my health insurance?
Or are you going to send me a bill, Mr. Lawyer Man? I don't know. Maybe they even out in the end. I think.
Well, Estonia, if you break a leg, you don't have to pay for it, right? I mean,
healthcare, baby. Healthcare.
Something else.
I'll take a side note. I have a friend of mine. I grew up with him. He now lives in Atlanta. He's doing very well for himself in Atlanta, let's say. And he writes to me and he says, "Bro, if you need help, if you ever need evacuation, like if Russia comes over the border and shit goes down, just write to me, right? And we'll do what we have to do to make it work." And I want to write back to him and I say, "Bro, you live in America. If you ever need evacuation,
right.
Just write to me.
You.
I'll send it to Europe. We got healthcare. Don't worry about it."
That's right.
Not even that, Atlanta, man. Oh, I don't want to be a dick, but that's like one place, man. That just makes my skin crawl when I have to go anywhere near it.
Oh, I think Atlanta's a lovely city. I've been there a few times.
I've been there. It's a nice
Oh,
place.
yeah, as long as you're not driving anywhere near
Oh,
it.
yeah, no, driving around's a nightmare. It's a nightmare, but it's like I call it like southern Chicago. It's just got a cool...
Yeah, it's a big city. It's
Yeah.
huge. I mean, it's like the capital outside of, the southern capital.
It's like
area
southern, but
would
not
be.
too southern. Like they got
Right.
that southern roots going on, but it's not full yeehaw Not that, I mean,
Full
yeehaws
yeehaw.
good sometimes, but again, Australian who lives in Europe, what do I know about these things?
Right.
Oh yeah.
Lewis just assumes
need to-
everything
we
below
need-
the
yeah.
Mason-Dixon line is just people shooting each other with 6-shooters and
Right.
riding
It is-
horses and yeah.
Right. That's what we need. Lewis to make like one of those funny country maps that somebody
Yeah.
makes of like for Waffle House, where it shows
Right.
each state and like something funny that they think that state's for.
Like when you
So-
ask grandma to rate video game cameras, video game characters,
man.
sorry, or something. So yeah, so we're growing up. So retro. So you said you made a line, Roger, and you said Florida influenced the retro. I mean, what do you remember?
Well, I don't know if it was
retro as a
about
kid?
Florida, but it was just like I was 8 at the time, right? And you know, it's just all those memories that are just embedded with gaming of just like having sleepovers and having your friends over and playing Nintendo till 2 a.m. and you know those. You know,
Yeah, what did it start with? What games like stand out?
oh
to you
man,
as,
it was
like, the
early.
first
It was
stuff?
you know, I remember it vividly. I was like, I think 4 at the time, and I remember my dad. We were all in this old burgundy Chevy Blazer, and my mom and dad drove to a KB toy store. My dad and my mother and father had me when they were very young, and they drove to KB toy store. My dad had just gotten paid, and he had bought an Atari 2600 Junior, and he had 2 games with it. One was Centipede, and one was Solaris. And I went and bought a box copy of Solaris. I'm looking at it right now on my shelf, just because that memory is like ingrained in my brain. And yeah, it was just a lot of 2600, something really simple. And I still have a fondness for that. And then, you know, like everybody else, once you get an NES, you know, everything changed. But that's about as far back as it goes for me. So
Okay, I remember my cousin had the 2600. I started off with the Amiga. That was more common in the UK and then by association Australia as well. So I started off with the Amiga and copying discs and having big stacks of floppy disks and doing it that way. My parents were telling me, like, why would we buy the NES? Because it's 2 games when we can copy all these games
right.
for free. That was my parents' financial logic at the time. So they wholly
You're ahead of the
endorsed-
game right there.
Wholly endorsed my
early
piracy.
piracy.
Early piracy,
Early
of course. I had
Early
a buddy.
software pirates.
I had a buddy in high school who had an Amiga, and he was the only guy I knew that ever had an Amiga in the States. And you weren't
Those are
kidding
not
about.
common, yeah.
No, not at all, and not even really the Commodore 64. Really, I didn't think. I mean, that was mostly a European thing. But you ain't kidding about the amount of discs. I mean, he had a copy of Dragon's Lair on the Amiga. And I'm not kidding. It was over 20 discs for this thing. You would clear a room, and then the screen would come up. Please insert disc 18. It's like, God damn.
It was. You had to go buy a new pack of discs to copy the latest Monkey Island. I'll need another box of 10 at least.
Right.
And then we're going to sit there with X copy. We're going to go 1 in, 1 out, 1 in, 1 out. But we got our copies, right? It would be, rather than the games, like you guys say, like, oh, we came over and it was games to 2 a.m. and stuff like that. With my friend Jay, the network cabler who I mentioned before, Jay, it was copy parties until 2 a.m. Like copying the Amiga discs.
And see, in the States, we didn't do that until like 2000. We were all burning CDs off Napster and stuff like that. So that's what that was. Those were our copy parties. But
I can remember before CDs really came out, and I would sit around and think, how could I save up my money from like mowing yards to try to get one of those stupid zip drive hard disk that would store how much, you know, like it was the size of 20 discs or so, you know, little floppies. And I would just sit around and covet that thing. I never got one. But now I look back, and every time I see one, I just laugh at myself, thinking, oh, I've got to have this. I need this much ability to move and transfer data on one disk.
the zip drive, that lasted like 2 years, right?
Yeah,
that was a thing for a very short period of time.
Exactly.
Roger, was your path on retro? So it was the 2600. It was then the NES, and that's the game changer. But for you, like a lot of us have this sort of story where we played them as kids, and there was a period where we didn't. and we either the collection was in storage or we let it all go, or there was this time in our life where we didn't, then we've come back to it later. Have you been consistent with games, or have you had that off period as well?
It's funny because, you go to high school, then you go off to college. But even when I went off to college, I at least brought like a Sega Genesis with me, or I brought the NES with me, because everybody has that connection to it. I remember people would come over and Super Dodgeball. I would like be playing Super Dodgeball, and everybody would be like, "Oh man, I remember that game. That game was awesome because you could do 4-player with it." So, it would just bring back memories for just so many people. So it was always cool, like just as a social function. Just, you could play the latest game. When I was in college, it was all PlayStation 2 and Xbox. But when people came over, they would see the NES or they'd see the Sega Genesis, and they'd think, "Oh my God, we got to play NHL 94. It was the greatest game ever. Let's play that." Why would we waste time with this new stuff? So I always just brought that stuff with me. And then it got to be the point where I got to buy my first house, and I just unloaded all of it. Yeah, it was just in like Rubbermaid bins in storage, and all the stuff I have back there, the vast majority of it is stuff I've had since I was a kid.
Wow, legit. Steve, what have you got that you had as a kid?
Not much anymore. So when I was in, what happened to me was I went off to college, and the only thing I took really with me for gaming was a buddy of mine. This was pretty funny. A guy I had gone to school with growing up. He we always thought he was kind of like nerdier than us, but our senior year, he got a girlfriend and he got her pregnant. We were like, "What? Holy crap!" And so he immediately dropped. He kept high school, but he didn't go to any kind of school after that. He started working for Comcast, the cable company, installing cables. And on the side, he was like, "Hey dudes, I know how to install hard drives into your Xboxes, and I can fill them with all these ROMs. And you just go buy an old school SATA drive and give it to him, and he would charge you, $150 to do that." So that he was doing that side by all to just make money because he was about to have this kid. And now I look back, it's funny, I see pictures of him now, and his kids are in their 20s, and and he's my age. And so 17 had a kid. So he sent me with this Xbox, and that was what I used because it was an emulation machine.
Oh, it was great emulation.
Powerhouse.
It really was.
So people really would like you say, people would flock to that thing in college. But my collection of stuff from when I was a kid actually one Christmas burnt up in a house fire.
That's right.
It was crazy. Actually, I was at college, and I had moved all my stuff back into my house because it was upcoming to be finals week for Christmas. And the weekend, I moved it all back on a Friday, Saturday, and then late Sunday that night there was a fire at my house, and it burnt. I mean, thankfully nobody was hurt, but it burnt the whole house. Inside, everything was gone. So I lost all that stuff, and even everything that I had moved back from college because I was getting ready to go back to just stay there. And the house I was living in, all the guys that I moved in, it was one of those everybody moved off campus, and I was the one person out of the 5 who didn't drop out of school from that one semester. They couldn't handle going to class. Some of them went the first day. And of course, after one semester that, everybody has to leave because nobody else is still enrolled, and they all have to go back to their parents. So I was like, I had to move back into the dorms. Oof. And in the process, I moved the stuff home, and then the house burned up. And I never forget when my roommate, he was like, "Sit down, I need to tell you something." And I was like, "What?" And then it actually wasn't half bad because I went to go around and I told all my professors that it happened. And I was like, "So I don't know how I'm going to do on these finals." And they were like, "Oh, don't worry. I'll only count your final if it's better and it helps your grade in the class."
Oh, wow.
So immediately I was like, "Oh, okay, great." And
wow. That's the new dog ate my homework. Yeah, my house burned down. So.
Right. And I was like, but see, you're like, I had another guy. I told my wife that story. We weren't together then, but she had a guy that she grew up with in school he did something similar, but he went to college and told his professors that he had been diagnosed with cancer, and it was a lie, right?
Oh my God.
And then now it's been 15 years, and he's got cancer. So it's always like, don't
Can't use that twice.
right?
On your
Don't.
professors.
It's not worth it.
Thought you told me that.
So we were always like, yeah, don't.
That is what we call
that's what I told
karma.
my roommates. Yeah, I was like, don't press it. You're basically saying you got it. It's gonna come. So
Okay, so you had to rebuild after that,
but
Steve.
yeah, so that's what happened to literally everything that I had growing up.
That sucks. That sucks.
None of that stuff made it.
Okay. Oh, for me, I think
So
the
everything I've had to buy since.
the Amiga, I think, is long gone. It's the stuff that I had, and I had a long gap of not being into games in the middle. So the stuff that I had, but as a kid, I cry now when I think about it. The Amiga is gone. The monitor that with the original Commodore monitor that was with the Amiga, gone. Genesis, the Mega Drive that I had, gone. In college, we were picking up these like 21-inch flat screen Sun CRTs, like the rebranded
Right.
Trinitron ones. We
Right.
had a bunch of those in our share house as well that we picked up for cheap from the auction house. That gone. I wish when I think it was even 2007 maybe, and I was living with this girl in Sweden, and she's like, I got you something, a gift, and she bought me a Wii. And I was like, oh, it's not a PlayStation. Oh. I was a bit of an unappreciative dick back then.
Yeah,
Still am.
I
Yeah,
think
right.
So that girl didn't work out, huh? Okay.
No, it turns out not. It might have been a little bit influenced by that. So it took me a while. I think I even sold it later out of spite for $50 to a Finnish guy. And here I am now buying Wiis again back,
Yeah, I was about to
anyone they come up
say.
locally. So it all goes around. I didn't get back into it till years later. Again, till my American friend that I was talking about, he was coming over to visit me in Estonia, and even like it's hard enough to buy stuff now, let alone I've been here for over 10 years. So whenever I've become quite accustomed that whenever someone's coming to Estonia, be it a friend's visiting or maybe someone's gone and come back, I am getting them to bring back stuff for me. So I'll be like, my friend's like, oh, I'm going for a holiday in America. I'm like, what's the address? How long are you going to be there? What days are you there for? Tell me the time of day, because I'm going to get stuff sent to you and you're going to have to ship it back to me. So I became quite astute at illegal importing, or at least personal importing, and everything else is new in my collection.
Well, yeah, you guys were talking last week about just game collections and prices and where's the market at. And I couldn't imagine getting into retro gaming right now. It's patently absurd, the prices right now. And it's just, for me, it was never like getting into retro gaming because I just always kept the stuff around. I mean, I've added to my collection here and there, but I'm actually starting to offload it just because I'm running out of space. I think I remember when the recession really hit about 10 years ago here, that's when I bought probably the vast majority of my collection because I was already in it. It wasn't really I think right around that time, there was a couple game stores here and there, but the whole YouTube culture of retro gaming, it just didn't exist back then. I mean, I think you had Angry Video Game Nerd. That was about it. I was able to pick up a lot of this stuff, and I see some of the prices now, and it's like, like what does Earthbound go for now? Like,
well,
$400 now. It's get out of here.
Silly, and it's how many ways are there to play Earthbound if you just want to play it?
Oh God, if I wanted to do it right now, I would just buy a Mister and just call it quits.
Of course.
Yeah.
No,
be done with it.
Yeah, so we're constantly looking at that kind of stuff because it's. Lewis and I have fun talking about market things because these aren't real. I mean, they're fringe collectible markets that are extremely premature or immature, I guess you could call them, in their life cycle. They're extremely new. People who get sucked into this stuff and think they're like astute financially by buying into things like collectibles really are crazy.
Yeah.
Most of the time, because it's like you don't put the same emphasis on investing into truly proven assets that over the history of time, just because you want to be, I don't know, like maybe hip to be counterculture or something, kind of infused into it. I don't know. But anyway, it's like, I don't understand being so into Pokemon cards, yet you don't want to put any of that money like into Hasbro or the Wizards of the Coast, whoever the hell makes them.
Why not buy stock in the Pokemon company?
Exactly.
Right.
And then you have a tangible asset that you can quickly, easily sell down the road if you need to, instead of like, oh, I got a Charizard card that's super hot right now because one of the Paul brothers made a video about it.
Right.
And 6 months from now, nobody's going to give a crap, and it's going to go down, sharply in value. But that's what's probably going to happen here in the next this recession we're heading towards. It's kind of a weird one, Roger. I don't know exactly how it's going to affect markets as much.
I think now,
the
Roger,
job numbers, people still have a lot of people still have their jobs.
Right.
It's just the costs of everything have gone up so much that they're temporarily not buying stuff.
Right.
I think, Roger, you're doing the right thing now. The market is high still, even though the indicators say that things aren't looking good. The market, you sell into a hot market. Now is the market to sell into.
No, my biggest regret is that I started offloading stuff now and not like a year ago. I really wanted
when it was really high.
When it was really insane, or right at the start of the pandemic. That's when prices were like insane for things. But it's cooled off a little bit. But it's not sustainable. These prices are going to drop eventually.
Yeah, see, and that's what will happen is this cooling of our entire market. That's the whole point of it. Like, people are that's the game plan for the Fed to come in and raise the interest rates in the United States to try to cool pricing. That's literally what they're trying to do.
Right.
And they're doing that to affect all markets.
Right.
So the only thing I do know is that, most people I realize that are in this hobby do have a decent, they're not like, I hung out with like a lot of people in college who were like partiers and maybe were into gaming at some point, but they never got back into it because they've just had stressful financial troubles maybe throughout their midlife. Whereas a lot of the people we talk to actually have, maybe somewhat of a financial situation that's better, right, than the average person. So we're just not as crazy about offloading these assets that have been a hard time to get and are not like needing money always off of it. So that helps it a little, but yeah, there's not going to be as many people speculating in it anymore. I don't know. Maybe there will be. Maybe
speculation is a funny one because, hey, Steve, we were talking about that. I really wanted to get Sean from Reserved Investments on the channel to talk about. Do you know, Roger? Do you know this channel, Reserved Investments, with Sean, the guy? Okay,
I don't.
He's talking about collectibles, talking about investments, but very level-headed, not hype-driven, this sort of thing. And I really enjoy the channel. And I really want to have this guy on to talk about CRT prices. And I hit him with some ideas, and he came back to me and said, but what about this? What about this in the CRT market? Will your audience appreciate what I have to say? And the reason, and I have to write back to him now, the reason that I think so is because the CRT market, I don't think, correct me and let's talk about this. I don't think it's something people are investing in the long term in. I see some people speculating. Maybe we buy it, we flip it.
Oh.
Fine, sure. But I don't see people saying, oh, I'm going to buy this BVM and I'm going to hold on to it for 5 years.
Right.
I don't know. If that's happening,
I think there's a lot of
around.
Truth to that. I think there's a lot of truth to that because the CRT, not the PVM that I have, but I had a CRT before that I'm now coincidentally trying to sell. It's a 16-inch Samsung Dynaflat with component input. It's a great little TV. It's from the mid-aughts, low hours, bright screen. There was a seller on eBay that is in my neighborhood, or not in my neighborhood, but in the Detroit metro area, and he had like dozens of CRTs, and I could just tell it was just some young kid, and he was just driving around to different either estate sales or picking stuff up off the curb, cleaning them up, and just selling them for $200, $300 a piece. No one's actually, I think, they're just speculators. They're just trying to make a quick buck off these things, which is unfortunate, but
What do you think
There's
about that,
definitely
Steve? Yeah.
that level of stuff.
Sure,
now,
that's
yeah,
definitely
when Roger, like, we're talking like these higher end machines. Again, we're getting into people that have disposable income, and it's so for some people, I compare it to like, hey, I love motorcycles, and I got to get my one hot rod motorcycle or something, because that's kind of what it is, or it's like a car, like a classic car. And it's not something that's reproduced. It's finite. There's less and less and less every year. And so the high-end market of these PVM, BVMs will probably sustain itself. I think it's going to go flat, you know? But I don't think that's really not going to fall off.
Yeah.
Because there's too many people that want them,
Right.
and there's too little of them, and there's no coming back. But if
Lewis needs a beer.
Yeah. But if you're... you know, the speculation stuff on these highly produced ones, like
The consumer tubes.
PC CRTs,
Right.
there's millions of those. And
Right.
there's literally, somebody could walk into a warehouse from like an auction, and you find it full of those things, like thousands of them. So that's the real weird thing, is seeing just stuff that's bottom level,
Right.
like
a
plentiful.
Yeah, a gateway monitor from like the late 90s. Someone wants $250 for it. It's like, what are you talking about, you know? And I don't know if
Oh
you...
my gosh.
Like
I look on eBay all the time at new listings for, you just put in Trinitron and sort by new listing just to see what people are putting on there. And like the insane amount of money people think they can get for like a 32-inch CRT that's going to be picked up. And then like if you live in that area, the same area that somebody's like trying to sell one, I guarantee you could go on Facebook or Craigslist and find one for free, because people are always like, oh, those 30 inches, they're so great. And I'm like, yeah, but they're also worthless because they're impossible to move.
Right.
I mean, not impossible, but
They're a pain in the ass.
yeah. I mean, you and I saw how much trouble we had just trying to get the 20-inch to move.
Right, exactly.
And I don't even like, I'm using U-Ship now for 13 inches.
Yeah,
Because
why
I'm
not?
not, because why? Right. They did good. I had one like after yours where you got it there like overnight. And then I had one that somebody had bought off me. The one you were talking about, like saying, oh, I might get that smaller one. You sent me a message. And I was like, well, it's, somebody already got it. That one, I put it on U-Ship, and I wasn't even going to pack it in a box. It was only going 200 miles. I listed it as an electronic.
Right.
They would have come and just picked it up, and we're going to drive it 200 miles. And I wasn't able to be there with it being picked up. I had to leave, and I left it on my porch, so I boxed it just to be safe. But, yeah, they had it there the next morning within 12 hours, basically, and they were texting me, texting the pickup person the whole time.
So U-Ship...
Being really communicative. Communication was great.
U-Ship is kind of an interesting company. I mean, it's just basically a brokerage.
Yeah, like Airbnb, basically.
Yeah, that's really all it is. It's just connecting buyers and sellers. It's not like you can't just take your CRT to UPS or FedEx and just go, hey, get rid of this thing, and they'll do it. You really are at the mercy of, does anybody actually want to pick up this thing? And what I learned, because I originally had tried to send the CRT to you over U-Ship, but the problem I had is just really my location. I'm at the mercy of freight coming from Michigan going south to Virginia. But if you live in a place that's kind of in the center of the country, or maybe even the southern part of the country, you might have better luck trying to find a driver that's willing to pick up your truck. And when I had the driver that picked it up and brought it up here to Michigan, that was sheer luck, because it was Memorial Day weekend. There was a driver who had just dropped off something, and I think he was in Tennessee or somewhere in the South. And he saw that.
I talked to him.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm from there. I'm going back home.
That's right. And he was going back home. He was from
great.
Saginaw, which is about an hour and a half north of me. And he was just going back home, and it just worked out. But otherwise, I'm at the mercy of somebody coming to Michigan, which doesn't happen much.
Can you just
Right,
hold on?
and
To,
so
with U-Ship, is there a way that you could sort of just like leave the offer open, and maybe it takes a week or 2 weeks or something?
Well, this is a great way to talk about this, because I had the exact other thing happen too, like where Roger's saying, I had another listing where I had a 13-inch that had to go to South Dakota.
Right. Who's
just,
going there?
Right. And it was Sioux Falls, so at least it's somewhere you've heard of, and it's like a bigger city. But still, like you say, how many trucks are going between Harrisonburg, Virginia, which that's a major shipping. I know it doesn't sound like I'm on a major shipping route, but I'm like half a mile off Interstate 81.
You're right off the expressway.
Which every trucker goes from north to south there. But going out west, yeah, so I left it. I was like, we'll just have to be patient. I left it for a week and got not even an interest. And I mean, I'm like I'm beyond what it says the offer is to book.
Oh yeah, that's so lowballed.
The way that UShip works is it gives you this range on like how successful you can name a price, because you're like, I could go to UPS and look up how much this should cost to go across the country, and then you can kind of name your price. It gives you this range, and I mean, I'm sitting at a week with like 30% above the high on the range, and it's not getting any interest. So in that situation, I was like, man, this sucks. But I had to basically go in and pack it like it's the egg experiment from when you're in grade school and they tell you to put an egg in a container and they're going to drop it off a building, and whoever's egg doesn't break wins the science contest by your structure being sound enough. So it's like you go through and in the whole time I'm just sweating bullets that the UPS or FedEx still will do it right and ship it.
How did that one go in the end?
Thankfully, it made it there.
Oh, Steve's got the greatest luck. Honestly, I hate his luck.
Dude, that's the funny thing. Like the packages I get, I've got one coming today, and I guarantee you the schmuck put 2 8-inch PVMs in the same box. I tried to order them incrementally so he couldn't ship them to me at the same time because he had 3 listings, and then I ordered one, and then he just waited, and like 3 days later I was like, I forget it, somebody's going to order this last one. So I bought 3 PVM, the ones you did your live stream repairing.
Mm-hmm.
They're the 8-inch with black and white only.
Are they listed as saying they're black and white only right now?
So they're listed as black and white only. They were $160 for me each, shipped and tax. So I was, and these are the higher line count tubes too, or I wouldn't have bought them. They were, so one came in, I did the repair on that, and then I'm like, well, I should just buy the other 2 because I'm not going to probably see some for a while, and that's a good price for me. And so we'll see. They're showing up today. But some of those boxes,
they'll be immaculate. They'll all be immaculate.
So some of those boxes, they're not like, I mean, people will put like nothing in there, and somehow it makes it.
Hopefully the small ones go a little better. Maybe they're a little bit.
Yeah, they're easier to.
Yeah.
But still, the last one I did an unboxing of the first one because I was sure it looked like it was going to be broken. It looked like somebody ran over the box with a fork truck, and I was like, I didn't hear anything. I was like, but this is.
I suspect. Here's the thing, Steve. I think you've done videos before about those smaller ones, but I think there's a potential that those small ones, especially to say if you do a video about the repair, that could be the next thing that's on the Steve Nutter influencer list of things that are going to go up in price. I know because we all watched the video from RGB Rob, which gave us the kind of inspiration and fire to realize, that's all the problem is. We've just got to reflow some solder points, or we can do a little more to make it precise. But I think Rob's got a nice following, but Steve's got a much bigger following, and to know that you can easily fix these 8-inch ones. That was kind of a weird thing because I never saw that service bulletin back, and I had done 2 videos before this where I was like, I don't know what it is, but I think it's just solder on this color board that's gone bad. So if you reflow solder on the entire board, and I did that twice in the videos, it works. And then Rob came out with the video saying replace the parts according to the Sony service manual or service bulletin, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try that. And then for a second, I was like, wait a second. Before I do that, why don't I just try to reflow solder on those 2 parts and see if it comes back? Because I was like, why would it make sense that reflowing the solder before, like for years, I've done that, and that's been the solution, just bad solder. And so I started messing around. I was like, look at that. It came right back after reflowing the solder.
And then I told Lewis, and he's tried it a few times, and it's doing that. So I was like, all right, I got 2 more coming. We'll prove that it's just like, we were laughing saying Sony made up this big lie about the parts being bad, so they wouldn't admit that they just got shitty solder on that board, and like gonna admit that everybody will have problems with their solder and just say the whole thing needs to be recalled. Oh no, it's just this one part.
Sounds like funny. But what about Roger? We're looking at there's a smaller monitor in the background, not the big OLED.
Yep.
That's one Steve worked on, is it?
Yep, it's a 1942Q. So yeah, this was the stinky one. Steve got in trouble, I think, with his wife when he brought mine in, because I think his wife accused him of picking up smoking or something like that. I mean, it's
probably.
It's stunk so bad. And so
where did you get it from?
So I got it off eBay, and like, you know, I live in Michigan, right? So if you in the States, if you live in Southern California, getting a PVM's no problem, right? I mean, you could find them. There's lots of listings out there, but in Michigan, you hardly, if ever, see PVM listings go up. So one showed up. It was 10 minutes from my house, and it was this guy. He wanted $800 for it, and I'm like, ooh. You know, and I knew,
dreaming.
Yeah, he's dreaming. And you know, I went down the rabbit hole. I was doing a lot of research on models that I was interested in, but I knew of the 42 and the 44Q completely analog. I mean, no on-screen display, no service menu adjustments. All geometry, calibration was all done with potentiometers in the back. And I'm like, wow, I don't think that's something I'd be comfortable doing. But you know what? I'll take a look at it anyways, because how often does a PVM show up in Michigan? So I write the guy, and I'm like, hey, you know, can you tell me about when you acquired it, how long you've had it, any maintenance that you've done to it, anything like that? And he didn't answer any of my questions. He was just like, look, do you want to take a look at it? I'm like, all right, fine. So I go to his house, and he's in, and I don't want to sound like a prick, but the town that he lived in is like very blue collar. I mean, it's just there's like a lot of we call them bungalows, just little 1,000 square foot homes. And so I'm driving. He gives me the address, and I drive over. And there's like he's got this like brand new Audi SUV out front. You know, the car costs more than the house. So I'm like, all right, this guy either is a young professional with a different set of priorities than I have, or he's a drug dealer. It's one of those two things. But how often does a PVM come up in Michigan? So let's check it out. So the guy shows up. He's at the door. He seems like a nice enough guy. And I come up to the door, and I go inside, and I am hit with a cloud, just like a ton of bricks, just boom, of like a myriad of odors, like a very pungent marijuana smell, which I kind of expected. A very pungent smell of cigarette smoke, a pungent smell of cat piss, and then like on top of all of it was like Axe body spray, right? It was just like you know, let's just put lipstick on that pig, right? And so I'm looking at her, and it reeks, and I'm looking at the carpet, and it's all ripped up and stained, and he's got this little house, and when you walk into the house, you're in the living room, and he's got like this sectional sofa that's like 3 times the size of the living room. Like you have to like walk around it just to get into the hallway. and you could see the kitchen from there, and it's just shit everywhere. And he's like, yeah, man, come on back. And I'm like, I'm going to die. Like, I'm going to die in this transaction. But again, how often do you get a PVM in Michigan, right? So I'm like, okay, all right, let's do this. All right, we'll keep going. So you know, you walk in, and then you turn to the right, and there's a bedroom to one side, and then there's another bedroom, and then in the middle is a bathroom. And thank God he had the door to the bathroom shut, because who knows what's going in there. But I could see his bedroom. His bedroom was just a mattress on the floor with just shit everywhere, just like fast food bags and beer bottles and empty soda bottles and just everywhere. I'm like, where the fuck am I? What am I doing? But how often do you see a PVM in Michigan? So all right, I'm going to keep going. I go to the bedroom, and he's got the PVM set up on the bedroom, and he's got this thing sitting on top of a what are they called? It's a Betamax editing station, kind of like one of those reel-to-reel, all analog so you could do real-time editing. Like you could do raw footage from a beta recorder, pop it in, and you could view your editing right there on the fly. So he had it on top of that, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I'll give you everything for $1,000." I'm like, "What am I going to do with this editing? What am I going to do with this editing station?" So I'm like, "No, that's okay. I really don't need it." But come to find out, he got it from another lawyer, who I guess he would make his own commercials, and he would do the editing of all of his own commercials right there, and he had that PVM, and he did all of that. So I was like, okay, that's remotely plausible, I guess. And so he's doing it, and he's showing me everything, and I right off the bat, it had bad convergence. The focus was a little off. I could tell it needed a recap. It's from October of '89. It's a super old PVM, but you know, I came back and I emailed a few people just what they would think about, okay, how much is that going to cost to do repair? I never emailed Steve, but like Andy King I reached out to, and Andy was like, "Oh, it's a great PVM. It's a great PVM. It's going to be great. Just pick it up." And I negotiated it down. I ended up getting it for $450, which was because nobody wanted it. Like nobody. I don't know if there's just not much interest in Michigan for PVMs, but I ended up getting it. And as soon as I put it in my car, I shut the door, I started my car, and the smell just engulfed my car. I'm like, son of a bitch.
The
so
unexpected, the unexpected. Oh,
it's like if you guys watch Seinfeld, like when Jerry picked up his car from the mechanic, and he's like, what is that? And so I bring it home, and I tell my wife, hey, I got a new TV. She's like, what happened to your old TV? I'm like, but this one's better. I got a new TV. So, and I bring it down the stairs, and I put it in the basement, and then she came down to look, and she's like, what is that smell? What is that smell? And I'm like, yeah, the guy I got it from, he definitely smoked. And she's like, you got to get rid of that thing. You've got to get rid of that thing. And I'm like, honey, I can't get rid of this thing because it's a PVM in Michigan. I can't get rid of this thing. And I
just risked life and
I did.
Crackhead, Dan.
Local lawyer dies murdered by Crackhead. But anyway, so at that point I was just like, I got to get Steve involved, and Steve did a great job. He cleaned it up, and there was a little bit of a smell, but you light a candle.
I couldn't get rid of all of it.
Yeah, but you said like it just becomes oxidized in like the tube.
It's so
right?
weird. Yeah, like you would have to, for me to do that, you would have had to like completely reassemble it and like chemically clean every part, which I did clean a lot of it.
It's
but I didn't take like the tube out, because even after that I was like, well, it's still, I have a storeroom behind here and racks, and then I'll like store, after I bring them in here, I put them on the rack, fix them, put them back on the rack till like the day somebody either gets them or they ship out. And then I was still like, dang man, that thing still stinks.
Does it stink now?
It's
like
no, I can't smell it. The only I could
it
smell
wasn't nearly as bad as when it started.
That's because you got COVID. But okay,
that's true. I did get COVID. maybe that did it. But no, if I have it on for a long period of time, and if I get close to it, I can kind of smell it. But if I'm back on the couch and I can't smell a thing. And like I said, I usually just light a candle next to it, and it's no big deal.
So how does it look now?
That was crazy.
Tell us about Steve, about the work you did to it and how it looks now.
Sure, yeah. So, well, the bad thing was, this was some shit.
It's the worst.
So
it's the worst.
Roger was hitting me up, and this was like as I'm on my way back from Texas, from doing the big Texas museum job.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, sure, yeah, because he's like wanting to ship it, and I'm like, he's like talking about shipping it before I even like get back, and I'm like, don't do that yet. But it showed up like a couple days after I had gotten back into town, and the problem was, so like I knew UPS was shipping it or had the tracking on it, and so I'm just sitting out there all day working in the garage some, and getting things ready, and I must have gone inside for 5 minutes, and I come back out, and there's fuckers at UPS. I live on a hill. If you've seen it in my videos, sometimes you'll see it.
Right.
And they came and they literally dropped the damn thing at the bottom of the street by my on the street, this big ass crate. And I'm like, and so I immediately then had to go, and thankfully I was like, I don't even have a dolly here. I don't know why, but I don't. But I have a bunch of those PVMs that are BVMs in travel cases. you know?
Right.
And so if I take one of those, I have a 24-inch one. If I take the 24-inch monitor out of the case and I take the top off the case, it's literally a flat thing with 4 wheels on it. So I wheeled it down to the bottom of the driveway.
Oh my God.
And I put the I just like cricked the pallet on top of it. And then I pushed it back up the hill, thankfully, easy enough. Got it in there. And I was looking at it, and I was like, I opened it up, and I'm like, what the hell happened? And it looked like on the outside it either had been hit or they had like just thrown it.
They just dropped it.
And what I had I had talked to some people, and they were like, yeah, if you go through UPS facilities, sometimes they'll just have a conveyor belt that just drops shit like 5 to 10 feet. And I was like, well, that makes sense. It looks like it dropped. And it was the thing was it was packed on a pallet with a shipping crate, wood crate. And so I immediately got it open. And the worst part was I tried to power it on, and it wouldn't power on for the first time. I don't know what the heck was going on. And the power button was destroyed, like the on-off button. And I'm like flipping it. It's not doing anything. And so immediately I reach out to Roger. I'm like, man, they've screwed this thing up. And I don't really like to go further than that unless the customer, depending on what they want to do. Sometimes if you just say, oh, I just want to file it on a claim, then they'll file it on a claim, and then UPS or FedEx will come and get it sometimes. Sometimes they won't. Depends on how it was set up, insured, and et cetera. So anyway, I told him, and then out of curiosity, I brought it back in, and I plugged it in again and started like pushing it, wiggling it, and it just powered on. And I was like, oh shit. And then I plugged in RGB, and it looked great. I was like, dude, this is a great monitor. Like, he was complaining about it, but from a starting point.
What the hell do I know?
Like, right. Well, from a starting point, I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, this tube is great, and this needs to be saved. It's like the potential on it is it can be as good as it probably ever has been, maybe even better than it came off the floor, adjusted right. So I reached back out to him, and I'm like, look, I can get another power button for it. I might be able to fix the plastic that they had banged up. And he said, okay, let's do it. And he's like, I filed a UPS claim before. I think I even told you that. You filed it before I said I wanted to mess with it anymore. Right. I just did that on my own. And it's the funniest part was that the next day after we talked, you're like, yeah, go ahead and fix it. And I said, sure, yeah, great. So I had it in the basement fixing it, and I'm sitting there in my garage at another point, and UPS shows back up to my house. And the guy comes out, this time with a dolly. Right. Because he's not going to carry it, from my driveway that he thinks all the way back down the hill to his truck without a dolly. So he pulls the dolly up, hey, I'm here to get this thing. And I'm like, oh, you are? Really? That's interesting. No one told me. He's like, oh, I thought UPS would have logistically told you. And I was like, no, nobody said anything to me. And then he's like, well, it's something been damaged, and we're supposed to send it somewhere to fix it. And I was like, well, it's already here. This is the place that fixes it.
I'm the guy. I'm the fixer.
I'm the guy, the only dude in the country. And he just kind of looked at me like, what the fuck? You're not the only dude. And I'm like, yeah, right, okay. I was like, so he's like, so what do we need to do here? And I was like, I don't know. What do you need to do? And that's what I just kept doing. I was like, I'm not giving you direction. You came here from UPS. I didn't even invite you.
I didn't even know they were sending. I never got a notification or an email or anything that, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to send it over to the recipient's address or anything. I never knew that. And then you told me that story, and I was like, oh my God.
That's what they do. That's why I hate using them, is because they'll do different stuff every time you have actually a claim happen.
So funny part about that story, Steve, is after I got it back and all of that ordeal, I got an email from UPS saying, oh, by the way, we're adjusting the freight cost on your shipment. You didn't pay enough freight, so we're gonna add insult to injury. We're gonna charge you another. I think it was like $49 or something like that.
Wait, it already happened.
I don't.
It was already delivered, done and done, And they
Done and
came
done.
back and said, "P.S."
They came.
no,
Well,
now
yeah,
we
because
want
you
my
gotta
money.
when you set up for oversized shipments, you got to set it up on their website. And then they send a guy out and they pick it up from your house. So you already pay for the shipping. So you measure the crate, you weigh it.
Okay, yeah.
And I weighed it, and it was like 100. It was like just under 100 pounds. So I just put in 100 pounds, and evidently that wasn't enough. The postage I had already paid. So. Oh, well.
Dang, that's like changing the deal after the deal's
Oh,
been
yeah.
made.
Salt in the wound.
I totally
And that was
avoid
after
them.
they denied my claim. They said, well, you refused inspection of the damage, so we're going to close the claim. And
I knew they were going to do that,
Yeah.
because that's what they do. Last time I shipped one using UPS to New York, and they did the same thing. They broke just the power button. And I was talking to the guy who bought it.
You said that.
And they just broke the power button. And I was like, look, I went to the UPS store that I shipped it from. I was like, look, I want to set up a claim. I set up this claim. And I said, but I'm not willing to let your people go pick it up. I said, I'm going to go pick it up and inspect it. Or you guys can go there and inspect it and leave it. And they're like, what? And they said, okay, I think that should work. And they called me back and say, oh, that's not how the insurance works. They have to come back out and pick the entire unit up and bring it back. And I said, well, look, man, you guys you're going to break it more. So no, you're not going to do that.
Right.
And they made me withdraw the claim. And I was like, screw it, fine. I just drove up there and brought a different monitor and swapped it out and fixed the power button. Because I was like, I'm not. And that was like the last time I've shipped anything big with them, just because they've gotten terrible at it. Like, don't care.
Well, that's the thing is
Customer service is shit, like trash.
Like filing lawsuits is not a big deal for me. Like it's So part of me is kind of like, how far do I want to take this? Do I, because Steve was nice enough. He sent me a separate invoice. He's like, hey, this is all the service I did. This is the recap and the calibration and the cleaning and all that stuff. But then here's the separate one for the power button fix and the bezel fix and all that stuff. And I think it was like an extra $400, I think is what you told me with all the repairs. So I've got half a mind to just, I don't know, just file a small claim. Yeah, and just see what happens. Because I don't care. I'm going to get in front of the judge. Well, and I'm going to say, and you're my expert witness, right? This is the CRT repair guy. So I'll call you to the stand.
Let's see if they can find their own CRT repair guy to call the stand.
It's going to be Steve Nutter versus Andy King.
It'll be Andy King. It'll be Andy King. He's like, yeah, you guys fucked that thing up.
They're gonna they'd pull some schmuck out who's like an expert on flat panels,
right?
And he'd be like, "Well, if it was it's a flat panel, it should be shipped in a box like this." And you're like, "Yeah, you're already losing, buddy." But it's.
So how did it go back then? How did you ship it back to?
We used U-Ship.
It was U-Ship, but it was great.
So they did, yeah, they did. They came out and got it. But that stuff, I hate. I got another person that is in Ohio that sent one here in a crate like yours, but he used a shipper instead, and he keeps saying that he's going to use U-Ship on the way back, but I don't know that he'll be able to find anybody that easily.
Right.
So we'll see. So it'll be the same kind of situation.
Yeah.
But that I mean, it's ridiculous because look at the way they operate, showing up to houses like unannounced. And they're supposed to be professional. I had a breakup. I call it a huge breakup with FedEx like 2 years ago. I used to only take my stuff to FedEx when I lived in Tennessee. I even had an account number set up there with them because they were giving me like 10% off, and they were super nice. And then COVID happened, and I used to always take my boxes to them, and they would inspect them and say, these passed for insurance. And they said one passed. And then it showed up to Seattle in 1,000 pieces.
Oh, God.
And so the claim was just terrible. Like the whole experience, they drugged their feet. They did the same stuff to people, like sent somebody out to the house, said they were going to inspect it. And when they showed up, they said, no, we need you to pack it up and we'll take it back to our inspection center. And so they made it really awkward. And I'll never forget, I got on a conference call with like these claims adjusters. And I was telling them, I was like, look, I made videos, and I was like, I made videos of me packing this PVM at this time. And they were like, why would you make videos of that? And I'm like, because that's my job, and to
Right.
prove that I pack them right and that you don't ship them. And the person that was a claims manager hung up on me and then would never return an email, never returned a phone call. So I called back customer service, and it literally took me 2 hours of them shuffling me around between departments to just close the FedEx account forever. I said, I don't want
What?
this account open.
Oh.
I don't
Oh,
want
you
to do
did
any
it.
business
Okay.
with you. I said, I don't want to do any more business with you. I never want this account used again for any reason. And they just couldn't understand that. You know, they try to send you to 15 different people and make you wait on hold. It took literally 2
it's
hours.
all by design.
Right. They wanted me to give up and keep the
Right.
account open. So after that, I've had just such a sour taste with FedEx. But then, you know, UPS really isn't any better. So I try to avoid them.
Yeah,
At all
U-Ship,
costs.
I
It
really
sucks,
appreciated
but-
that U-Ship video that you put out because I had never heard of it. And, you know, I did a little looking into it. And yeah, it's just a logistics broker is all it is. But, you know, they make it pretty idiot-proof as far as how to set up the account and how to get your quote out there. And, you know, I'm not going to lie. I got quotes that weekend where you finished the CRT, and I was getting quotes for like $1,200, $800, you know, to ship it from Virginia to Michigan, which isn't too far, but thankfully, and that's what it takes a guy, because you got to think about truck drivers, right? Truck drivers, the thing they hate the most are deadhead miles. You know, if they're on the road, they want to have a commodity because they're getting paid, and deadhead miles and by deadhead miles, I mean they're empty. They're not hauling anything. That's just eating into their profit. So they're always looking to get them to where they want to go. So like, for instance, my guy just so happened to live nearby. This was the perfect opportunity, and he did it for me for a pretty reasonable rate. But
all in all,
Yeah,
Roger,
if you do the quote, sorry, go ahead, Lewis.
I was just going to say, like, all in all, though, I mean, we don't need to pry into exactly how much all of this cost you, but we can sort of add a few numbers up here that, you know, by the time you've bought the unit, let alone time with the crackhead and mental stress that is. As a lawyer,
the alleged crackhead.
Alleged
okay?
crackhead, very good.
Right.
And maybe you're in a better position to financially sum up how that half an hour of your life might have cost you in financial terms. So there's that. There's getting it to Steve. There's Steve's work. You know.
Well, Steve, I mean, the most reasonable charge out of all of them is Steve's. Steve. No,
golden
it
toilets
is
don't
true.
come
It's
cheap.
ridiculous.
No. I'm being serious, Steve. You could charge a lot more for what you do. And I looked at your bill and I was like, what? That's it?
I
Okay,
probably will have
cool.
to someday, but right
Yeah.
now,
But
It's
I
like-
was, and matter of fact, I sent your bill over to Mike Chi, and I said, Mike, because Mike's got a couple 20L5s, and
yeah, he's got some stuff.
he's got some nice stuff in storage right now. And I was like, dude, just ship it to Steve. This is what he charged me, and he was blown away. He was like, oh my god, I got to look into this.
Steve will do it for a couple of retro tinks.
Well, I mean, Mike and I, we actually met a few years ago at the first event like Bob did back. I mean, this was before, it's like 6 months before COVID happened. And that's when I met Mike. And so, yeah, it was cool to talk to him. But it was so funny because I was in insurance at the time, and we were sitting around talking about like variable index funded life insurance policies, if they were good buys. And that's what he was talking to me about. And now I'm actually coming up where my birthday month is next month, and I'm due to do some continuing education just to keep my license.
Oh, in insurance.
Like for insurance license.
Right.
And I'm like, I can't believe it. I'm just going to go through and do this stupid one-day
do it,
course. Just to keep the, I mean, because
Yeah,
it's,
keep the
if I ever
license,
wanted,
sure.
if I ever wanted to get the license back, it would be a pain in the ass and cost
Right.
a lot more money. And I have to go through and do a course and like real tests. Here it's all like search on the internet for the answer on the test.
But Steve,
You
is
don't
that a
even
little
think-
bit like for you? Like you are, you are self-employed. You are
Yeah.
doing it for yourself. You know, you're an entrepreneur. You're making it happen. And is it a little bit like if you keep the insurance license there, in your mind, you've always got a backup, even though this is going fine. And look, this is a great
Kinda.
thing. You know, it's that almost a little bit irrational. Like, for me,
that's
I can
what I'm
always go back
thinking.
to computer science. I can always go program some fucking Java or something, and then I'll probably have much more money than I have right now.
Well,
is it that?
you're on to a good thing there, because I'm constantly thinking, like, should I just get rid of this Band-Aid or this scab and just let the, because would that be more confident of me? But at the same time, I think it's kind of a silly business decision to just let it go when it's not really that much. Like, I know how much it takes to renew it, and it's not that much. But the point isn't not to have it to maybe do work, but I'm starting to think, like, what is there a potential for? I start to think like our creators or people in this space of retro gaming things. What kind of group benefits does anybody have?
Zero.
What kind of group protection does anybody have? Would there be any interest in me going to a meeting with everybody and discussing some kind of group policy of some sort? And I'd probably be the only
gaming
person.
cabal, yeah.
Yeah. So, but you understand, how that kind of works. So if then that license could be beneficial at that point and still relevant to what I'm doing. So I don't know. I mean, I'm hard pressed to just let it go. I really do not ever want to do traditional insurance stuff ever again in my life. I worked with Farmers Insurance.
Okay.
I had my own agency for a decade with them.
Okay. So you did sales.
Yes, and they sent me after I was about to be vested for 10 years, and that would have doubled the value of my individual contract with them, because we're contracted. It would have been nice.
It would have been nice.
So like 6 months before that date, I'll never forget this, they sent me a damn FedEx dated December 24th, because I was just like, corporate was trying to come in the week before Christmas, and like you would hear people around the country telling them they were just cutting contracts, right? They're just like downsizing agencies across the nation at 2019 and Christmas. And so I was like, fuck this. I told him, I said, I don't have any important reason to meet with you. I told him this, except for after Christmas. If you want to meet after Christmas, that's fine. And they said, no, this time is just, we don't have enough time. I said, whatever, I'm not meeting with you before Christmas. And no shit, they sent me an overnight FedEx to like my office, to my house. And what I did was I left town on like the 20th and went to Florida with my family till like the 4th of the next year.
Yeah.
So I got back and I find all these FedExes just sitting there, like saying we're terminating your contract. And I was like, almost 10 years, and these assholes, literally 6 months. And so if you get a contract with the company you do contract with, there's probably always an out for them, right? Even if it's a painful out for them.
Of
like
course.
for me, I always knew that they had to basically give me 90 days notice on my contract saying we're cutting it up. And then they had to pay me the contract value after that, no matter what. So it's always like you got this little parachute that you're like, well, if they get rid of me,
right,
I'll at least have this, which
my
is
little
not
severance,
something
yeah.
which is not something you normally have with another job where you just get laid off.
Right.
And so that's why I was like, I was always dragging my feet to talk to him about anything. I was like, I'm just going to work this shit as long as possible if you're trying to mess with me. And so, yeah, they sent that letter, and it was just crazy because I was like, these fuckers are global. They knew this pandemic shit was happening.
Yeah.
They knew it was happening because this was all the same time all this stuff happened. And I just sat there and I said, you know what, this isn't so bad. Like, look at all these stupid government programs. I'm getting paid my contract. I'm getting paid all these stupid government money now from this free money bailouts. And then I was like, I took that opportunity. I paid off all my debt.
Perfect.
That I ever had. I started saving money. I started working more on this stuff and setting up this to just keep doing this full time. And since then, it's been a great, I'm glad all that happened.
That's awesome. That's
because
really...
it was going from being two different side jobs almost to being able to do the one thing you want to do and not have to deal with that other crap. because I've always been someone who like wanted to work on my own. Like I'm not good being micromanaged personally.
Well, yeah, and I think with the company that you were working for, I mean, I think you're exclusive to them. You're not an independent agent. You couldn't sell to anybody else, right?
Right.
That's a bummer. That's a real bummer.
Yeah. So and then when the only thing was that I was not able to. The only limitation was I wasn't able to go back and like try to take away the book of business from farmers for a full year. Like I had to wait a full year.
Right.
So you could work in insurance again. Is that what you mean?
I could go straight. I did. I went straight, found a independent agency in town and signed up to be an agent for them. And it was so awful trying to learn the new system that they had. And it was like I did it really well for about a month and sold a bunch of policies. And it was so much work. And
yeah, but you're starting from scratch. You're starting from scratch.
And
again.
I was like, you know what?
That's the problem.
Fuck this. I was like, I'm not into this at all.
Yeah.
And so I just sat there. And after a couple months, that guy was like, hey, are you still selling stuff? Because I thought you were going to be selling more. And I was like, yeah, we go meet and talk. And I'm like, yeah, I got this whole other business. It's way more fun.
I'm arguing with UPS drivers in my garage.
Yeah, I was like, I'd rather just do that than argue. Like you say, you know what's funny? Your story about going to somebody's house. I can't tell you how many times I did that working for farmers because somebody wanted to get like a quote for frickin' auto insurance.
Right.
So you got to go to their house, really?
Go to their house to meet with them, to send them the proposal and have them sign the paperwork and give a check. And you're sitting there for 2 hours in murder scenes like you're talking about. And you just want to go out and get like a biohazard bath.
There is not enough Purell in the world, man.
Like 12 monkeys where they pull you back in and they're like scrubbing you with disinfectant.
This is weird. Well, hold on, break this down. Again, I'm living in socialist Europe where everything is online system. There's no idea of going to someone's house for some shit. No. What the fuck? I have an ID card with a SIM in it that I digitally sign documents. I don't even know what it means to put a pen to a bit of paper anymore and put a signature on it. I digitally sign PDFs. So wait. So someone needed auto insurance, and you have to go. You are not the appraiser of the auto. You're not looking at their car going, oh yeah, that car's worth 10 grand.
No. I was responsible for looking at the car and making sure that it wasn't like a wrecked piece of crap.
Okay, that it was at least similar to what they said. You weren't analyzing it.
So this is such a terrible business model. This whole insurance thing for somebody like to be an agent, because you have to go like the stupid companies. Like, we don't want to write homes that don't have handrails on 3 steps or more. And you're like spending all month marketing, busting your ass, doing quotes. You find this guy who's got like a $5 million insurance account. He's got a big home, all these cars, all these toys. And you're like, shit, yes, it's finally going to happen. It's like a $3,000 commission this month. And then annually you'll get $1,000 every time he renews or something like that is how it works. And you get there and you get everything done and you look at his house and you're like, motherfucker's got 4 steps and no handrail. And every single property gets an inspector out there. And so if you don't sit there and say no, some asshole comes out there unannounced in the first 60 days. Oh, look, here's a picture of them with their no stairwell. And then they sit there and they send the picture to you and say they need to add stairs or we're canceling their policy in 2 weeks. And you're like, what the fuck?
Roger, is this shit normal?
Steve,
is this?
Yeah, actually it is. You're kind of getting into you're getting into my industry right now, because there's so many actuaries that are looking at that, and they're crunching all the data, they're doing all the analytics, and they go, well, look at all the claims that come out of something as you would think is such a nuisance as just 3 or 4 stairs, right? Just so nominal. And it's just, here's the elevated value of claims that come out of that potential hazard that's in that home. And, can we justify that risk? And no, you're going to have to rectify that hazard, or we're not going to continue to write the policy for that customer. And you're right. It's mind numbing, but then you get the lawyers like me, and there's, how many millions of lawsuits filed over
right.
something that you would think would be so simple and stupid.
It's because grandma fell off the stair or something, or
Right.
somebody was
That's
trick-or-treating and tripped.
That's
slipped.
exactly
So-
right. And there's a lawsuit, always.
There's always a lot. But the funny part is, so after a while, me and the guys who were selling this stuff, we were new agents. We were like, we got to hit numbers. We got to get business. We don't have old. So I had literally these homemade homemade handrail of 2x4s. And I would, they'd send me the picture and they'd say, we're going to cancel this policy. I'd say, okay, hang on.
No, you're not.
No. Hey, all I would do, I had it set so I could just set it on the concrete, and it looked like a handrail had been installed. It wasn't even installed into anything.
Oh,
I would
now,
just
wait a
go
minute.
there, and I would set that thing up, and I would take 4 pictures. I'd send it back to underwriting, and they'd say, okay.
Oh.
I'd take the stairs, throw them in the back of the truck, go back to the office.
Steve,
then-
if I were your counsel, if I were your attorney, I would strongly advise you discontinue that practice.
That's why I don't do that. Yeah.
You are a walking
man.
errors and omissions claim. That's
Well, that's
what
why
you are.
that's why I had like $5 million in errors and omissions.
Oh, you have to.
Insurance.
You have to.
So there was that. There was I never forget this. This scared me the most. So I didn't really do this, but there were guys that started the same time I did, and this is in 2006. So they're starting to build these networks within insurance companies of verification. So it's like you're a customer, you're switching from XYZ insurance, and you're switching to this other insurance company. Well, if you're switching, this company that you're switching to is going to give you premium breaks based on maybe what you used to have, the coverage limits you used to have, how long you had that policy in force. And so they're calculating those things into it and then adding that and taking down the premium of the policy from what its base rate is, like how much they say. It's like, okay, this is $200 a month. You get these credits. We've knocked you down to $160 a month for that. And you're like, okay, yeah, that's great. Well, there were all these guys in my office, and I was like, how the hell are you selling this auto insurance to these people that would have no insurance prior? They'd come in, they'd get a car, like, I need insurance to get off the lot.
Right.
And they'd sell them this policy at a decent rate. And they're like, oh, well, you haven't heard about the Farm Bureau deck page? And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? And they had gone and scanned in this Farm Bureau deck page, which Farm Bureau in Tennessee in 2006 was an insurance company that you could pick, but they didn't verify any of their coverage. So they didn't send their coverage out to any companies and share it. So people in the office would sit there and make fake deck pages from this
my
company
God.
saying that these clients used to have continuous insurance coverage for like 5 years.
Oh,
And
my
put
God.
it in their file to get them the better rates. And then I was just like, holy shit, man. Whenever the company finds out about this, they're either going to be so scared or, I mean, I can't tell you how many horror stories
This
I've heard
is
of
making
that
me
kind of
very
shit.
uncomfortable.
There was a guy, there was a nationwide agent next door to me that committed suicide because he had done so many fraudulent things. He had written all these, he had taken like business policies and cut and paste them together and would literally go and sell them and collect their premiums and never write the insurance.
Oh my God.
And so like this $1 million claim happened to him, and like he was all of a sudden under investigation from like federal,
of course.
federal fraud.
Oh, of course.
And so the FBI was after him, and he'd nullified. But there's been so many weird things like that, and there's just some people that do that stuff and are still in the same town somehow with just a different company, and they're like selling insurance, and they're still doing it even though they've been involved in these scandals and things, and people know about it. Like got busted 20 years ago for something like this, and people still trust them to go put their money with them.
So linearity, huh?
These stories are unbelievable.
How do we get into this stupid stuff?
We don't have such a thing as an insurance
You don't have like this
salesperson.
insurance stuff.
Oh
we have
yeah,
insurance
Lewis's head is
companies.
exploding right now. Yeah.
We have insurance
Oh,
companies.
so yeah.
Sure, and I
So
go
yeah,
to them and
I
I ask them,
I
but
have
it's
to
a
go
company.
out,
It's
yeah.
not like a local bloke that I go and like, hey, can you forge these documents and give me a better rate or something? It's just a big company.
And then the
they-
company gives me a 10% or 20%.
Yeah, but
piece of
Lewis,
it, the
but honestly,
premium.
Lewis, though, I mean, the model is shifting here in this country as well. I mean, most insurance
Yeah, that's a
policies
dead
are
end.
bought
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, most are bought online. It's all standardized. You don't have the local agent down the road who's committing the fraud that
Yeah, it's like
Steve
an
is
old
talking about.
idea.
Yeah, that's a real antiquated model that
Sure.
you'd go to a small town, the local mom and pop insurance agency, and they sell for 3 different companies, and they,
It's so interesting. I mean, also, again, we have to filter everything through that Estonia is a country of 1.3 million people. That's a country.
Right.
We have a president. We have a prime minister. I have borders. Apparently, NATO. I don't know, something. All this sort of stuff for the size of how much is Detroit? Detroit, is that even what?
The Metro Detroit is about 5 million people.
There you go. A fifth of Detroit, and we sit at the United Nations. Imagine a fifth of Detroit sitting at United Nations, going, "Yo."
Yeah, we'd make it interesting, sure.
Right.
That is so weird. It's like same level of I mean that's just politics, but still.
Sure. So another part of it is because Estonia. So we've had like 20, 30, maybe almost 30 years now since the fall of the Soviet Union, and the country was re-independent. It was a country before the Soviet Union invaded after World War II. So 30 years of just rebuilding, and they just had green fields, just nothing. Like the what you talked about with mom and pop insurance companies, because it's been there for fucking ever since.
Right.
That's just the model that's always been there. So 30 years ago, the Soviet Union fell. McDonald's moved into Moscow. Nobody knows what the hell's up. So they're like, why don't we just make digital ID cards? And they went, yeah, good idea. We have nothing else. Let's make digital ID cards. And it's easier to start from nothing, especially when you have a small population who's all like, yeah, that's a good idea. And not, look, I love the vibrancy of America, but goddamn, you have nothing in common with each other half the time. And you're all yelling at each other.
Everybody's, there's always this struggle between American people and the government, kind of.
And that makes an amazing vibrancy. Don't get me wrong. That's what's made
it's
the
like you say,
culture.
it's on a different level where you, as an individual in a country that only has under 2 million population, well, you can actually go probably and make change if you wanted to make your voice heard and annoy your local politicians. Whereas here, man, it's like you're 1 out of 350 million people represented as there's not one person, not even the president, who's like, everything's great, everything about this place is great. Like, seriously, come on. Nobody, you can't get 350 people, you can't get them to agree on the color of the sky. Right. You're not going to get them to agree on
which produces an amazing vibrancy. I mean, that's the American culture, is the mixing of it. Is that it's a nice term for it,
vibrancy. Yes,
vibrancy. I'll be polite with that. It was a producers. On the other hand, when you have all these people that generally think in the one direction, I mean, does it reduce the vibrancy? We get healthcare, at least. I don't know, but we don't get that. I mean, there's not this separation between politicians. I could see the politicians know who I am. I'm like a half a retard comedian, right? But they know who I am. I've had a former prime minister on my podcast. It was the pandemic, and we were sitting around, and I'd met him a couple of times. I was like, Taavi Rõivas, a former prime minister of Estonia, do you want to come on my podcast? Come to the studio? He's like, sure. So,
well, I got 8-bit Esquire coming on next week. Yeah, I'll have to move you over next month. Yeah, maybe after him. He's going to talk to me about that time he bought a TV from a crackhead.
I think that's the one thing that mostly, the only thing that everybody's going to agree on is that they'll disagree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that can be cool.
In America. It's pretty much like.
Well, Steve, you brought up a really good point. It's just how far removed we feel like we are from our government, right? Whereas it's all government's local. That's the old term, right?
Exactly. So that's the only way you're going to make any change.
That's right.
Working in your local area.
And Louis, you're so connected to your government because it's so small. And for us, the regular folks on the federal level, like we have no connection to any of our politicians on the federal level. So
Right.
anyway,
Yeah,
I don't know
it's-
how we got to
it's
talking about that,
That's
but
such a strange let's just we've
Mario.
We've gone and
Brothers, huh?
moved from that. Yeah, we've gone and moved from that. So, we were talking. I think it started because we were talking about going to people's random houses
Oh yeah.
for clients. Now, like you say, this is something in our day and age today that is not going to be done nearly as much. But when I started with farmers, they were trying to still maintain this differential. Oh no, you need to make sure that you get in front of the client so they know that you offer them value by them having a real person in town as a representative of them with the company instead of just a 1-800 number or a web page from Geico.
Now I'm I don't want a person. I don't want to.
No, I want a web page from Geico. Yeah.
That's cheaper.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
I like those. Yeah, the funny commercials.
Yeah.
So it was. I really loved being, of course, working for myself and building a business. Met some cool people. Had some good times. But at the end of the day, man, that the financial industry of just cutthroat sales all the time, you easily get burned out on that stuff.
Sales is tough, man. You got to keep
Feel
working.
unappreciative.
It
It's
is
like,
tough.
it's like, I'll never forget. They kind of did come in 6 months before that, and they were giving everybody warnings. They said, you need to sell more. I said, okay, so how much more? They said more. I said, that's not really a definition. I said more could be $2 more, or more could be $1 million more. And I'm like, oh, you need to just figure that out for yourself. And I was like, well, this is the last meeting we will be having together.
Did
and that was it.
Did they say
That was
second
the last
place?
meeting I had.
Did they say second place?
Second
is
place
set
gets
up-
a steak knife.
Steak knife.
Third place,
You're fired.
you're fired. You see this? This takes balls of fucking steel to sell in this market, real estate.
Jesus.
Does Lewis have any idea?
Okay, a little bit, because my father was a salesman for industrial products when I was young, and he was also the same that couldn't. My father, bless him, but he cannot work with people. So he was only an independent sales guy on the road. He was selling to in Australia, we have all the coal mines and factories, and was selling rubber extrusion products and filters and all this stuff that industry needs. And he would drive around and be gone for days, driving to Outback, New South Wales and things. So my father was a salesman. I'm the son of a salesman. I know how to sell, but I don't like it. I can do it.
So anyone who's ever done sales can quote that monologue from Glengarry Glen Ross, and you can go on YouTube. Go on YouTube and watch.
That's
it.
really the only thing to watch. Just go watch
Yeah,
Alec
just
Baldwin.
watch Alec Baldwin's monologue, and you got Jack Lemmon in there, and you got all these real estate
Kevin
agents.
Spacey.
And Kevin Spacey's in it, and they're just like, oh god,
Yeah.
the leads
Al
are
Pacino.
weak.
It's a great cast.
It's a great movie, great cat. Well, it's based off a book,
And it's really just like a nothing movie when you watch it. It's Ed
Right.
Harris. It's like they're in an office. And
Right,
it's
it's
just like an argument over a scandal.
That's it.
For a day. For a day.
And so the producers ended up just writing in, or I guess the writers just wrote in this monologue that was not in the original source material. They just put in this incredible monologue from Alec Baldwin, who's the big asshole from downtown, and he's gonna motivate the local real estate agents about how to do a better job. And anyway, go look at it on YouTube. It's
What I've taken away
infinitely
from
quotable.
what I've taken away
Absolutely.
is I can do sales. I don't love it, but I can do it. But what I've taken away is that in my position as company owner of this production agency, when someone tries to do a sales job on me, I will take them to town. And so we get it oh, you're the production company, you're running events, we're the new ticket agency, or we want to sell some ads for you in the local mall and this and that, and I will rip them to shreds, leave everyone in the office laughing. And the best part is, I will just straight up be like, dude, that's a terrible offer. Why would I ever go with you? That's a bad price. You're not offering me anything. Why am I set? Why do you think you should put my comedy ad in the sport hall or something? I'll just rip them apart. And the nice part is, once or twice, I'll just tear them to shreds and everyone laughs in the office and we're done. But then sometimes the sales guy will come back to me a few weeks later and be like, yo, what you said was true. You're right. Here's some new offers that I've come up with you. How do you feel about these? And when they do that, I'm very nice to them and I'm very responsive to them afterwards. Yes, you listened to me, you responded. This is do a good sales job, I will respect it. But if you do a terrible sales job, I will pull you to bits. I'm almost the biggest ticket seller in this country. Write to me in English, motherfucker. Don't you know?
Oh, jeez, wow.
Who I am? Sorry. Now I've had too many beers. But it's like, it's a little bit like...
Oh, this is what you were talking about. Okay, yeah.
This is what happens, all right? Everyone knows Comedy Estonia. It's called Comedy Estonia, but this weird Australian dude runs it, and he doesn't speak Estonian. And we are definitely the top 3 ticket sellers in this country. And if you're trying to get my business, you can do the research on the top 3 ticket sellers. Who are my top 3 potential customers in this country? Okay, there's another group of theater guys, yes. Then there's probably the music guys, yes. And then there's us, right? So you investigate your top 3 customers in the country, and you work out, oh, it's that Australian guy. I'm not hard to work out. I'm not hard to figure out.
They must be dumbasses because like they're not doing any research. Look how much free information you're putting on the internet about yourself.
Right.
Somebody could be like, "Oh, hey, Lewis, I heard I saw your awesome podcast. I wanted to talk to you about a deal." It's like, oh, really? And they might throw you off with that kind of approach.
Right.
Like, oh, I was listening to your podcast the other day, and I
stroke your ego a little bit.
Oh,
God, you're really funny, Lewis.
Fine. Estonians, look, I love my Estonian people. They know how much I love them. They're dog shit at sales. Dog shit
like, what
at
if
sales.
What if Roger came on here after all this to just sell us like insurance after all this buildup?
Yeah,
that would be perfect.
That's really what it was.
That would be the good sales.
Yeah, man. Guys, you have no idea.
Build a rapport.
I am 8 steps ahead from all of you guys.
Oh, dude, 3D chess.
You guys are going to finance my swimming pool that I'm going to put in. It's going to be great.
Roger, I was interested in actually as a when you're working lawyering and doing your things, you're you said you're a partner, but yeah, anyway, in your agency. But how much choice do you get in the clients or the cases that you take on? Do you get given them, or are you allowed to say yes or no?
I have a I have over the years have developed a lot of clients that we have a really great business relationship with,
course.
and so a lot of times I'll end up representing the company. Or I'll represent, I do represent a lot of the insurance industry, so, I'll represent their policyholders if there's a claim. And so they'll just refer me work. And, come through the email and a lawsuit's been filed and we need an attorney to represent either the company or the policyholder. And that's when I am on the case, so. That's how it works.
So there's a lot of repeat. So you're working with the customer.
Oh yeah, yeah. And even that's changed a lot. I mean, there used to be, it was very industry standard to take out your clients, go play golf with your clients, or go take them to a ball game, but those days are over. It's more. I don't care about how many times you've taken me out in the last year. Like, have you done good work for the company? And thankfully, knock on wood, I have. They continue to send me work. So probably not after they see this podcast, but
they sit through it, right?
They sit through it.
Hour and a half in.
That's good stuff.
But you're a golf guy. You said that. Were you already into golf before being a lawyer, or did it make you?
Oh yeah. I've been playing golf on and on since high school. Really. I used to be pretty good at it, and then I had kids, and that kind of torpedoed all of my golf playing, but now I was talking to, I don't know if you were around, Lewis, but I was talking to Steve beforehand, and I've got a 4-year-old, and I got him his own set of clubs, and so now he's super into it, and he wants to go out with me all the time. So I got a built-in partner, which is great. But maybe I'll start playing more because. Oh, I dropped out. I'm sorry.
Did he drop out for you, Steve, as well?
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. No, he's back again. Okay.
You know what it is? They're probably, my kid's probably upstairs watching YouTube right now, and he's eating up all the bandwidth.
Too bad.
What are you on? Cable internet over there?
Yeah.
Oh, you got to get off that stuff. I'm actually lucky. The place I moved to has a small, local fiber internet company.
Oh wow.
And they're down the street. I was unbelievably flabbergasted because I can call them and go down there if I have a problem. Like AT&T before that, they would laugh at me when I call them.
Yeah. Right.
But now it's nice. So my dad, he's jealous. He lives in a nice house out in the country, but he can't get any internet good out there. He just gets cable, and they
just put fiber optic in my neighborhood, I think. So I'm gonna look into that, but just how much.
It's a big game changer. I don't know. Yeah. I had I actually went from the satellite to fiber.
Oh, God.
I never had.
That's night and day.
So, yeah, I was like, holy crap, I could stream. I
Oh,
didn't.
yeah, Lewis, do you understand satellite? So if you
Okay,
live in
that
the
I do,
sticks, okay, yeah, satellite internet.
Elon Musk
you live in
satellite,
the
you mean?
Yeah, we were
Those
talking about
fancy
that.
new ones that are super fast. That's
Oh
what
my
you mean,
gosh.
right? Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
You've been posting about this, so I have to laugh. I'm not talking. We're not taking an issue of this. This is hilarious. I thought it was just so funny that I didn't really understand why Musk came out. This is yesterday, Friday? He came out and said he wanted to be out of the Twitter deal,
Yeah.
and then Twitter's now
Oh,
fighting.
yeah, we're going to sue the hell out of you.
we're gonna sue the hell out of you
Yeah.
for not buying us.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm like, did he just do all this plan to like sink the value of Twitter?
No,
Because like it's gone down almost half. Their stock value's gone down half
right.
since he
Well,
made.
but you got to think about it, though.
$20.
When he announced he was buying it for $44 billion,
went
the stock value also went through the roof. So it
Yeah.
probably, and I don't know historically where the stock value has been within the last year, but I would assume it's leveled out to where it was pre-Elon.
Well, it was just kind of funny because he did like the whole. I was watching it, and he didn't make an announcement. They were like, "Oh, Musk is going to have an announcement today," and I have been laughing. I've not been really following financial stuff till like now. I've been watching the market drop so much, and I have some money, and I'm like, well, now I want to start buying some things.
Of course,
Because I don't have any reason
Great time to buy.
I'm not selling stuff, so I'm like, I'm just going to try to grab some of these good assets when the prices are lower. And so I'm just watching financial crap for the last couple of weeks. And yeah, just this whole thing where they're like, now we're going to sue him. But I was like, why didn't he come out at the beginning of the day and just totally kill Twitter stock at like Friday at like 10 in the morning and say this? Because he did it at the end of the day and it only went down.
What's the Friday
little
news
bit.
dump? Yeah, the Friday news dump.
Friday night
always.
news dump.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. It's just kind of weird, but that all that stuff. So like we're talking about speculative. That's just so ridiculous.
Roger, I'm seeing in your background there some. Are they arcade sticks on your wall there?
Oh yeah.
Got
So
Oh,
Let's talk about that. I see there's
Can I shift
Dreamcast
that?
stick. I see a Virtua stick there.
Yeah. So I've got
some
the
light guns.
Yeah, I
Light
got some
guns?
light guns. So that was the driving force behind me getting back to a CRT again. Is I missed light gun games, and my son got to be Duck Hunt was like his thing. He thought that was just the coolest game, and so yeah, I started buying up light guns again, and just all those peripherals, and so I thought, I had all these things, and I just had them sitting in a bin in my storage room in my basement. And I was like, man, these are so cool, especially that Virtua stick, the Dreamcast one, and then there's the Japanese one. They just look awesome. And I have all these guitars laying around, so I was like, why don't I just hang them up on the wall and just get some little floating shelves for them? And it worked out. It worked out pretty well.
You play guitar, do you? Obviously,
I do,
guess,
yeah.
'cause you
I've
play
been-
guitars.
I-
That would be
I
weird if
try.
you didn't play guitar.
Yeah,
Just
right.
hanging guitars
Although
on the
there are a lot of people. You'd be
Some
surprised.
people collect guitar like a
Yeah.
certain guitar, maybe that was signed by somebody or
Okay,
something
maybe
Right.
on their
not,
wall.
sure.
Yeah, but over what I do, in my work, probably 90% of my practice is done on Zoom now, and most of these lawyers work from home. So I'll see into their homes, and they'll have guitars hanging up on the wall. I'm like, hey man, that's a really nice Martin. Why don't you take it off the wall and why don't you play me something? He's like, I don't play. I thought it looked nice, so I bought it.
Right on.
You could buy way less expensive things that look nice on your wall, but okay.
Oh yeah, well that's the rich people get into art. We get us rich gamers get into tubes. They get into
Right.
high end art. Real rich people,
Right.
and
Right.
then hanging things on the wall behind
Yeah,
them.
that stick's nice. That's the Virtua stick on the Saturn. I think it's the bottom
Yeah,
one.
so
Is
there's
that right?
there's the Japanese. So
Yep.
let me
Okay.
tilt this. So
That's
there's
the
the Japanese
Japanese
Virtua stick, and then behind that I have the North American one. And then above that I've got the Dreamcast stick.
Nice.
So
What's
yeah,
the one at the
they're
top?
great.
What's the thing on the top level above? Or there's two more levels.
So
What's-
that's I could probably just grab it, but there's a Neo Geo kidney bean stick at the very top.
Oh, that's the top
I
one.
can
Yep.
see that.
Yeah. And then below that is a what's the name of the company? What's the name of the company? It's they sell them on Amazon. They make
Cranball,
killing
Hori.
Hori?
no, not Hori. It's like a Chinese company, but they make good, for PlayStation and Xbox and Switch.
8-bit-Do.
Not 8-bit.
No, it's that something.
May Flash. Is it
May
May Flash?
Flash.
There it is.
Okay.
There it is.
I actually just finally got that one.
Oh, you got one. I have one. We have.
Yeah, that's nice.
I was like, I didn't even know which one to get, and I was just like,
Actually, let me get that.
It's good.
Have you done I've done the mod on this one.
No, I haven't modded it
Sanwa
yet.
Buttons on that.
What,
And actually,
are yours those are the concave buttons. Did you go with? Or
no, just the regular Sanwa. And I think actually mine's not buttoned up because I was still from the lag.
Yeah,
still from the lag testing video that I did 3 weeks ago. So I still haven't.
I've been enjoying this thing, man. I played a lot of.
They're nice.
They're good because I can go over there and take it to my Mr. Cade.
Yeah.
And find because I have my Mr. Cade in a Neo Geo MVS, and that only has 4 buttons. So I can't play any of the other games that have more than 4 buttons.
Yeah, I think it was Todd Retro Frog. I think he just posted that joystick with his
I saw that.
and a vertical, and it looked awesome. I was like, man, that's the setup, right?
Simple.
Just something so simple, and just real easy and quick to play. So this Mayflash thing, it comes off with, I don't know if it comes off through but you could see Ryu there, and then you could see Ken on there.
Oh, dope.
So,
that's
cool. So it comes off with just a regular, gray thing, but you could take these off and put in your own artwork. And there's companies where you'll send them any image you find on the internet, and they'll cut it to fit this. So I found some pretty cool Street Fighter art, and I put it in there. And I mean,
I was wondering, that kind of looked like an old promotional. I thought maybe because you had that Street Fighter, I couldn't tell from all the way.
Yeah,
back there
and this was just some random image, I found online, and I thought it looked so rad. And a for fighting games. I mean, I know I got the Neo Geo going, but Street Fighter is by far my favorite. So
that's your jam, is it? Original.
That's
back
my
in the
jam,
day.
I guess.
Okay.
I'm not any good.
That's the only fighting game I can even play. I feel like and do moves to. I wish I was good at like Mortal Kombat, but I'm terrible at that. I don't get it.
Well, here's the thing. If you're used to playing the arcade ROMs of Mortal Kombat, they are the difficulty is just absurd on those. It's just so ridiculous. So you'll play it and you'll go, God, I really suck. But always the difficulty was always set to super high, just to eat your quarters. But
I had Street Fighter. Like in Australia, we used to call them milk bars, and it was just like like a deli, I guess, that would serve you a milkshake if you wanted, and we called them a milk bar. So it sounds so 1950s, even though it was the 80s.
Sounds
or the
like
early
something
90s.
out of Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, the milk bar. But I'd be like, I'm going down to the milk bar, and I'd play Street Fighter there and put the 20-cent coins on. So,
I've got. Speaking of Street Fighter, I mean, I do have, Joe, Scarlet Sprites makes fun of me all the time because I have these Arcade 1-Up modded things. But I've got...
Oh, you do?
I've got a Street Fighter cab, and I modified a Space Invaders cab. I made it a Donkey Kong cab. I modified another Street Fighter cab, made it an X-Men cab. So I think I post those on my timeline. But I love them. And I wish I could just have a Mr. Cade set up and hook it up to a arcade monitor, a CRT, and everything. But I don't know. MAME's easy enough for me. I don't have as much nostalgia for cycle accurate arcade games. Just if I could just play a casual round of Donkey Kong, I'm all for it. I mean, that's good enough for me.
You know what? That reminds me, talking about getting the cabinet, because there was a dude just over in Finland, which is not very far away. If I take a ferry, it takes me a few hours. He was selling an Astro City cab for about 800 or 1,000, which is not too bad considering it's right here.
Get it.
It was a little while ago. However, because the thing that came to my mind is that my girlfriend and I have just found an apartment that we think we want to buy. We're gonna go. We found it at like 4 p.m. on Friday afternoon. So you got to wait. Turns out we know the owners somehow. My girlfriend knows the owners somehow. So there's an inside track. So this looks better. So I'm thinking like this could be for the first time. We're gonna get a 3-bedroom apartment. I'm gonna get my own. I've got my own room here, but I'll get another room for myself. But my thought, as soon as spending the hundreds of thousands that it takes to buy your own apartment, my first thought was, I need to spend another 1,000 on an Astro City cabinet now that I'll have a space to actually put it in. I've got to get that guy in Finland.
But will it actually fit in your apartment? Like
I'll make
getting
it
in, getting it into the apartment. Could you actually get it?
Yeah,
in
that's
there,
the problem. This is on the 5th floor, and no escalator is a problem.
No, Lewis, let me derail those fantasies of yours. All right.
You're gonna have to rent a lift.
Yeah,
rent a crane
up through the window.
I can see that now. Yeah.
I'm concerned. I don't know how the hell I'm gonna make it out of my basement with mine. I mean, it was like slide down the stairs.
Nuts.
There's no out here, It was like 2 inches of clearance down the stairs. I don't know how it's going to get back up.
So wait a
and
minute,
out.
Steve. What do you have? Do you have a big red, or is it an
Yeah,
Astrocade,
it's
or what do you
over
have?
here. It's a
It's a big red.
back
Oh, there it
in the
is.
corner,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, man.
So
I always wanted to. If there is an arcade that I am nostalgic for, it is a Big Red. You know, because I don't know, Steve, if it was like this for you, but when I was growing up, like I feel like every Pizza Hut I ever walked into had a Big Red, and they were just the best. They were, you know, they always had Art of Fighting going on, or Magician Lord or something, and it was just the best. That I'd love to have a Big Red like that.
I have one buddy, and we sit around all the time for like 20 years just talking about how it would have been cool to be rich and have like Neo Geo stuff. And we were just laughing because we lived in a pretty well-to-do area, but this is like the South. Nobody had any of that stuff.
Right. It's such pie in the sky
No one.
stuff.
And it was, and so I was just, we'd talking, and so I found that machine. A local guy sold it, and he listed it, and he wanted like $300 for it back this 2 or 3 years ago. And I was like, hell yeah. I sent him a message right away. I was like, I'll come get it. And I went and got it. And I'll never forget this guy. He's like a product. His name's Jason Wilson, and a lot of people know who he is. He's a big-time arcade enthusiast, and like behind the scenes, won all these tournaments in the early 90s in Miami.
Oh, wow.
And where I lived in Tennessee, he owned some local arcades because he had so many arcade games that it cost him more to keep them in storage as opposed to open a small business and just leave them on free play and charge kids a couple hours, like buy a building and do that. So he did that, and he listed this machine, and I went and I was like, it's at his storeroom, and he was letting an employee open it and let me look at it. And I'm talking to him like, yeah, this looks great, but I don't have any games for it. Can you throw in any of these games for like some money? And he's like, no, I can't sell you any of those games. I'm looking at these games, and none of them are anything I've heard of.
Right.
And he's like, dude, I cannot sell you those games because like they're all shitty, and the cheapest one is $1,500.
Right.
And he said the only reason I bought that machine was because I wanted the 4 games in it. It came up for auction, and I'm just getting rid of the machine because I have a half a dozen of them.
Right.
And he made me go to his other store, and he sold me, you know, like the golf game, and then like a Fatal Fury 3 and soccer, one of those.
Well, probably Top
like
Players Golf. I think.
Yeah, no, the other one, the one that people want on. I don't know why
Neo
I can't
Turf
think of it.
Masters.
Yeah, Neo Turf Masters.
Oh,
on
wow.
MVS.
Okay. All right.
So those games would sell for like $100 each. So he was at that time. So he's like, yeah, I'll sell you those 3. So I got those 3. I invited my buddy over from 20 years, and we're sitting there jamming on the thing in my garage and like just having a blast. I have all this other shit running. It's a Friday afternoon. And the grounding at this house that I lived in, it was a newer house, but it wasn't great. It would always flip the GFI, and shit was weird. So we're in the garage just hammering on this Neo Geo machine, and we start hearing this weird boom, and it sounds like somebody's outside taking a ball pin hammer and just smacking a piece of steel. And I'm like, what the hell is that noise? We keep walking out, and we finally realize that it's the transformer on the power pole right outside of the house. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell that thing's doing. And we sit there, go back in, and 5 minutes later, we just hear an explosion.
Yeah.
And the damn transformer blew up and took out the power to my house.
Hey,
and the 4 neighbors.
The game said, when you started the game, it said Mega Shock. So,
yeah,
you know.
I was like, it's just, me and my friend, we were just laughing. We were like, no wonder we couldn't get Neo Geo. It's just way too powerful. And
way too powerful, man.
For even the electric grid around here. Mega Shock.
Mega Shock. Or Gigapower. Gigapower later on.
Gigapower.
That's what I said. Neo Geo was not a big thing in Australia. So I was going to the arcades as a kid. We would have our special outing to the big city, and after lunch, I'd get sort of $5 or $10 in coins and get to go to the arcade for a while. And there was always 1 or 2 Neo Geo machines. And this might sound so stupid to you guys, but Neo Geo wasn't big. I'd read about it in the magazines. I had the CVG, Jazz Rignall as a writer. I had all the British magazines. So even Neo Geo wasn't big for them. But I knew they were a thing. I knew stuff like Metal Slug was a thing. But when they had those cabinets that were like 4-in-1, the Neo Geo, that was their thing, right? They had multiple.
Yeah.
I was always like,
The 4-slot.
4 games in one. Doesn't that mean? Isn't that like
Right.
some cheap shit? Like, 'cause
Right.
we
Oh,
didn't-
it's like
No.
it's like the Nintendo 401 card.
The Action
little-
52s.
Action
yeah.
52. I don't
Right.
think
because
of
we
that.
didn't know about it. So I'm like, oh, I'm going back to play Street Fighter or Outrun or Capcom, some Capcom game or something like that.
Well,
I'm
this
not
is-
going to play this weird, Neo
Well,
Geo.
this is like Neo Geo in the States. The reason Neo Geo was so sought after, it had nothing to do with the arcade machine. It was you would get a EGM magazine or you'd get a Game Pro, and you would see the advertisements for it, and then you would see the price tag. I think an AES was $699 when it first launched, and the games were $300. So this was like
Oh, and more. And it
Yeah,
was like
and
that
more.
was the starting point.
Yeah, that was the
for a
starting
game. It
price
was
for these new
$299,
games.
and then it'd be
Right.
like $399 for this one,
up to $1,000
$350,
on some of the later
Yeah.
ones, right? So it had like this aura about it, like, oh, this is for rich kids, like, oh, this is
super
like,
exclusive.
this is super high-end stuff. Like, I'm playing Mario Kart on my Super Nintendo. That's lame as hell. I could be playing Neo Geo, right? And they had like these ads that were just in your face, and so that's what really just added to the mystique of it. It's not that anybody was actually playing this crap, like, I mean, you would play it.
a lot of people didn't have it. Yeah, access to.
So
it.
if you
No
saw
way.
it at the
Or-
Pizza
or
Hut,
the
you were
only-
like, oh, that's the thing. That's the main thing, right? That if you saw it at
Yeah.
the Pizza Hut, you were like, oh,
The-
my God.
the American, like he's saying, the American advertisement at the time for it gave it the aura of exclusivity due to
Right.
price, but also it felt like the rock star
Yeah.
like persona was the people playing this, like the people that were super cool. Everybody like that you were trying to be like
What was the ad?
superficially towards.
What's
it was
the
like
ad,
the guy
Steve?
with like his in like a business suit,
Yeah.
like a girl in a lingerie,
In the
and she's
lingerie, and she's
he
like,
won't- he won't.
yeah.
He ever since he got that, he won't put his hands on me anymore. He just puts his hands on
Right.
this
And
thing.
you're 8 years old seeing this in a Game Pro, and you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
Like, what is this? And that's what Neo Geo is. And then you
It's
see it at an
literally
arcade.
like it was like the same feeling you got as an 8-year-old when you saw the coolest Joe Camel ad. And you're like,
Right.
oh, smoking looks awesome. Give me cigarettes right now.
You know what I need?
Smoke.
I'm gonna play King of Fighters and smoke a pack of cigarettes, and I will be on top of the world.
Dude, I would get so many chicks. I would be like the coolest dude in town if I did that. So
That's
yeah, that's
funny.
what it was about. It was totally about
I
that.
see.
But
He
you
probably hired the same marketing team that did the cigarette ads in
probably.
the 90s and 80s.
But that said, though, like you would get the actual arcade game at home, and
Sure.
then you'd get like the shitty Genesis port of Fatal Fury, and you're like, what is
They're
this?
nothing.
This is terrible. Like,
It was
You know.
super accurate. It was
Yep.
super accurate. And you can tell that there weren't large print runs because it's the only
No.
thing that's had an insane following for an investment marketing thing.
yeah,
is
you're exactly
any
right.
Games ever. There's always been an underground Neo Geo collector stuff well before most of the internet was around, and like private brokered sales
Yep.
and like really
And the
sketchy
people-
shit.
And the people that have the AES carts, they have no interest in actually parting with it. They may list it online, but it's at such an absurd price that they know you're not going to buy it. It's just the fact that I have it and you don't, and I want to show it off.
Yeah.
That's all it
Yeah.
is.
Because it wasn't.
some
I
of that
don't even
stuff
think I
is
could buy
insane.
that. I think I mean, I've no doubt there was some way you could buy it in Australia at the time, but it just wasn't around. And because all I was doing was consuming British computer magazines, is the only way that I got information. So it was Amiga Power, CVG. God, I can't even remember. We had in the end we had Hyper, which is an Australian one, but it was either consuming Australian stuff or British stuff. And so I wasn't so much exposed because the British also were the same, not so exposed to Neo Geo. But I mean, that's the old story about how we were getting the computer magazines, because a regular, I don't know, whatever magazine that you might buy might be a few bucks when I was a kid or something. But the international, the British magazine, because it had to be imported, was months late, 3 months late at best, and was like $10. Which is just huge. When everything else is $2, it's $10, and it was huge. And what we used to do was go into it's called a news agent, which is like a magazine store. Like you could buy lottery tickets, you could buy greeting cards, you could buy magazines, newspapers. It's called a newsagent. Again, like a kind of a British idea.
Probably like a newsstand they used to have.
Maybe a newsstand, but it was a store, like that you could go inside, not like even a bodega or a kiosk. Like you went inside of it, and there was like some rows of magazines, like lots. Now that I think about it, and we used to swap the price tag. So we would go around to some other thing and go, oh, I'm looking at the haberdashery knitting magazine, and it would be something like $2, and you would just flip it off and just keep it off to the side here, and then you'd walk around. Oh, I'm looking at some other things. I'm looking at that, and then you'd go over to the computer mags and then put it on, and then depending how paranoid you were, you may then take that directly to the counter and just try to pay. Straight up, so and just know that the lady has no idea how much this magazine costs, because there's so many. It's the 90s. There's so many magazines, so many on the shelf that they just can't keep track of them. But if you were, sorry, I say it like in some sort of plural form. If I was not feeling good about the scam that day, you would replace the price tag, and then you would put the magazine back behind some other magazines, so it can't be found behind some other things. Put it there, go away for a while, like an hour or a day or something like that.
Build your confidence back up.
Right. And then come back, and then because then if they caught you, you would be like, but I just took it off the shelf like that. You have no proof that I did that. So you would then come back in, take it, find it where you obscurely hid it in some other weird section, pull it out and go, oh, and that's the scam.
So the theme of this episode has been fraud, basically. It's been between the fraud of your magazine, you had Steve's insurance fraud. It's just fraud. That's what we're talking about today.
Fraud.
UPS fraud.
Yeah, UPS fraud. Those fuckers.
That's so. I was sure you were going to say that you would go and buy like, oh well, if I buy 2 magazines that are $2, they won't be able to tell. So you'd like go buy. Well, I'm still only paying $4 and I'm getting 2 magazines.
Could be. You got to
double it up so you can mess with them.
Maybe you have a couple. Like, oh, we're just buying a few. What is the problem here?
What's the difference?
Right.
So. But yeah, even better to come back later.
So wait a minute. So what was that magazine, Lewis? It was just to see what was going on in the import scene. That's
British.
Yeah, sure, because we had no idea. So there would have been Mean Machines, which was a Sega-based magazine.
Yeah.
There was CVG, which I think was a little bit of an older one. I mean, the OG one was called Zap, and that was the Commodore 64 one called Zap. I think CVG was one of the OG ones as well, and then I think Amiga Power was then the one I started to buy because I had an Amiga and they had discs on the front, so you get demos and
get the shareware
stuff.
and stuff.
Yeah, you get the shareware and stuff like that on the front, and then I think then I discovered girls. Then I discovered girls magazines.
And girls weren't into Amiga. So
yeah, they didn't. But look, girls did not discover me, but I discovered girls, and then all of a sudden, what is an Amiga?
Well, you should have had a Neo Geo. Then the girls would have discovered you.
Yeah.
Right? There you go.
That's what we all thought. Look, this must work. You're like trying to figure out girls. Like, look, this guy, he doesn't have any problem in his ad. It's just because he got that machine.
That's right.
If you the girls will just show up.
That's right. Look, I've got Samurai Showdown. You want to come over? It's great. It's awesome.
Samurai Showdown and chill. Yeah, okay.
Yes. That's funny.
Oh, dear me. Gentlemen, we've been all going on 2 hours. So
it's been a long time.
Yeah. Roger, could you still get around to golfing today, or is it too late?
Yeah. Well, I got nap time. I got to get around with my son. So once he gets up from his nap, maybe I'll take him out for 9 holes or something. That'll be fun.
Okay. Steve, what do you got? What do you got on today?
Let's see. I could check my email. Maybe my package has shown up. Oh, not yet. I don't think so.
No.
So no, I'll be waiting for my PVMs to arrive.
Sitting around.
See if they work. PVMs. And then that's it. We'll see what happens.
Well, guys,
try not to mess up any markets before I need to buy something else.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
The
because
manipulator
there's
here.
videos.
There's no more RF demodulators anywhere for the PVMs. It's they're all gone.
Except for these. Look, here you go. If you made it this
what's-
long and you want a teaser,
Hey, by the
on
way,
more
what,
RF modulators.
is there a manufacture
next
date
one.
on those things? Because I've never seen that before.
That looks super old. That looks 80s, definitely.
This one is really old. I'm sure there's. This one is like new in box and never been opened. I mean, the box has been opened, but I checked it. It's still got like the seal tape on it, but it doesn't say even on it like what the date is. There's not stuff. They don't even put labels on it. It's made in Japan. That's about all.
How about
they're
that?
telling.
Good.
Made in
Good.
Japan.
No, this one's wait. No, see, this one does not have. This is like one of the first ones. So the one that I did the video on that you have is, a different one. That's actually a later
Yeah.
one.
Well, no, that
better
was for
than
the 8
this one.
series. Yeah. That was for
This
the
one
8
was
inch.
just for any of them.
Because Roger, you
had
have
this
that
stupid plug in the
obscure, early obscure orange Nintendo-y.
Oh,
theme,
my,
don't you?
yeah, man. It's so. Here, hold on. I know
Bring
we're
that up,
going
'cause
really
that's-
long, but
I've seen a few of those, and they're super kind of rare.
so
Yeah, those weird games.
they're
Those
really
like
not.
Japanese RF game.
They're really not that. Here, hold on. Sorry, they're really not that rare. In Japan, they sold like hotcakes in the 70s. So this is basically Block Breaker. This is one of the Nintendo's color TV game. It was a joint partnership they had with Mitsubishi. Nintendo did the software, Mitsubishi did the hardware, and then Nintendo designed the casing. I wanted this one because this was the very first one, I don't know if you can see it, to actually have
dope.
a Nintendo logo, to have the Nintendo logo on it. And actually, this case was actually designed by Miyamoto. This was one of the first. Yeah, this was one of the first projects he had at Nintendo. So I was like, just telling that story enough was reason for me to buy this. So I
Did you have
imported
to
it.
buy that? Sorry, did you have to buy that out of Japan? Or you just about to
I
tell
did,
us
yeah.
that?
I imported it from Japan. So, but you can see them on eBay now. But the prices on US eBay are don't.
I've
buy it
seen
off
them in
eBay.
Japan, like because I saw some not
Yeah.
working that I didn't pick up for like $40. I should have picked one up, but
Right. So
Yeah.
like this was like, because how much is a Pong Atari dedicated Pong console here? Like maybe less than $100.
Yeah, in a box usually.
Yeah, they're pretty common,
Yeah.
But this is what they had in Japan. So these are pretty fairly common in Japan. So as a matter of fact, I just imported the original TV game. It's called the TV Game 6, and it was just Pong. That's all it was. So, but anyway,
What year is that one from?
This is from
that you have there?
'79. This is from
And
'79.
it's color.
It's color.
Because like
yeah,
the
it's color.
Pongs weren't color.
Right. So this is from the first one came out I think in '77 is when they started it. So all it had was just RF out, and it came out with an RF cord that I had never seen before. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna attach this to to an American CRT. So I sent it to, I don't know if you guys know Mobius Strip Tech on Twitter, but he's a modder. He's out of the Ohio area, out of Cleveland. He's a Chris Marvin. He's a great guy. He pretty much everything that's back there has been modded by him. I trust him with everything. I sent this over, and I said, at first thing I did, I said, listen, can you try to get composite video out of this thing? Because I'd much rather just hook it up to a retro tank and play it on the flat screen. He's like, yeah, I could try, and maybe I'll find some schematics somewhere on it. And he opened it up, and he's like, dude, I've never seen anything like this. Like I don't even know where to start. And he said, "What?" He said, "Well, I could tell you what I could do. I can cut the RF. I can cut that and just give you a port. I don't know if you can see that, but
Yeah, sure.
So that's basically the same adapter you'd get on a Famicom. And he says, I'll just do that. So if you still have your NES RF box laying around, you can just plug in that, and that's exactly what I did, and it works great. But it's Japanese, so you got to use those higher frequencies. You got to use the channel 95 and whatnot. But so yeah, I that was really the impetus for me to go and find one of these RF demodulators, and I had known about it for a while because I was looking around online, and I was trying, 'cause obviously you can just buy a VCR. Just buy a VCR, that's the easiest thing to do. But I wanted something that wasn't as bulky as a VCR, so I did some Google searching, and I ended up on like Atari Age or something like that, one of these message boards, and somebody had brought up, hey, by the way, Sony made these set-top boxes for their PVM lines, and that's all they did because there was no TV cards in the PVM. So I found them, and I originally wanted to get a wider one. I think the one I sent you, Steve,
that's
one
a
that was
2030.
Yeah, it was designed for a 2030.
Yeah.
But they look really cool. I mean, they were much wider. They just and I found I could see those here and there. They were like $50, $60, and I was like, I don't want to pay that much. So I found that little guy for I don't know what was the price, Lewis, that I sent? I can't even remember.
Like $45, I feel like, or something.
25, 30.
Yeah, maybe not
something.
even. Well, it had like 15 shipping or something.
Yeah, but I think out the door I paid $40, somewhere around there.
Yeah, it was like that.
And I was like, yeah, I'll
$40.
bite the bullet on that. And I threw it on Twitter. And I was just like, no RF, no problem. Here you go. And Steve caught on, and the rest was history. And now
wait! You're claiming to be the one that inspired Steve, that inspired
I did.
the speculation.
I told
boom.
you the video.
He gave me a shout out in the video. He's like, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't even have looked for this thing. So yeah.
Which annoys me because wait, Steve, we talked about these things like 6 months ago. He's forgotten.
Yeah, and I totally blew it off. I didn't even remember.
You were like, I was like, because some
like,
dude had it was like
you did, and you're
it was
like, I was
$100
like,
in Germany.
whatever, dude. I don't know what the hell that is.
It was
I like,
$100 out of
anything like
Germany, and I went, I'm not. It was 100 euros
Yeah.
out of Germany delivered, and I went, it's $100 is more than I want to spend on
Look
RF.
Look at how much crap though was in this to get RF to
Right.
composite. Like what the heck, man?
But
that is insanity.
But I tell you, man, when you set that cue, that 8-inch cue right on top of it, I was like, man, that's a nice little setup right there. That's really cool. And then you had it.
I know.
You had it on your what was that? A 53 you got on your cart right there, 53 MD or something like that.
It was it was a 44Q actually. It was one like yours. Maybe
okay.
It was, I can't remember. I think I sold that one.
Well, you
I got
had
a
it on the
different
cart.
one on the cart now. Yeah, I got a different one on the cart now.
And you were playing hero with it. And I'm like, man, that's the setup. That looks nice. It looks so nice.
Yeah, it looked so good. I couldn't believe how our RF signal really looks good out of some of those early devices.
Yeah, I mean RF is as good as composite. A good RF.
Yeah, if you don't have
composite.
any outside signal interference,
that's the key. Yeah,
it's beautiful.
If you have no interference, you got a nice shielded cable. You can make RF pretty nice. I had the same thing with an SNES. I hooked up a new shielded cable to it, plugged it in, and yeah, you're right, Lewis. It looked just like composite. I mean, it was pretty strong. But.
Yeah. So the problem is I made that stupid video, and then I got all these 8-inch PVMs, and I was like, man, that would be cool to have like a bundle to offer a couple clients, and then I was like, now I can't even buy those things because
some idiot made a video about them.
Some idiot made a video about them, and then the 30 of them that were available online all got bought in 5 minutes.
They're all gone.
So thankfully, the eBay seller, he's probably taking his old lady out to a nice dinner at the Western Sizzler this week as a bonus.
But that's about all he can afford. Yeah, about the Sizzler.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's where we're moving.
Yeah.
So now we're trying to find a new thing with the older model that is completely like
what's the next thing you can hype up?
Maniac.
What's the next thing you can build up and speculate?
Well, hopefully something
on?
I have in my collection already would be nice.
Yeah,
so,
true. That would be nice.
How about
Dreamcast
Game and
guns.
Watch? I have a lot of Game
Well,
and
see,
Watches.
Yeah, it'll have to be your RF breakout thing. You know.
Yeah, there you go.
Of course, we just need 10 of them to sell to people.
But see, the problem with that, though, is I have so much shit in my basement. Like, I pick up radio stations like crazy the second I turn it on, just because of all the RF interference.
Oh, really? In your area, you do?
Well, I don't know if it's my area or just how much electronic equipment I have behind me.
Oh, okay.
Just all of that running, it's probably picking up all all the stations and whatnot. But so I don't even know if there's actually a dedicated sound to this game. Like, I mean, Pong, you hear the little bloops and bleeps. I don't even hear any of that. I hear like Bruno Mars. like I don't hear any of that stuff. I just have to shut off the stereo and just play it in silence.
That's hilarious.
That's what Miyamoto meant.
that.
That's what he was hoping for in the beginning was Bruno Mars.
That's what he really wanted. Top 40 hits. That's funny.
All right, gentlemen, let's do it. We're over 2 hours.
We hit it 2
now.
hours.
This was great, man. Thank you so much for inviting me. I think that was great. Yeah, I'll do it any other time. Feel free to give me a shout, and if you're really desperate for somebody,
yes,
send me a message, and I'll do what I can.
Nice.
This was great, guys. Thank you very much.
Steve, just for you.
There we go.
Weird echo clap.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Thanks for
you.
joining in. I hope you stuck through the 2 hours. We appreciate that. Like and subscribe. You know how it all works. See you next time.
Bye, everyone.